Chapter 3078. Is the guy called Audrin an enhancer? Chun Zhao asked. Yes, he's talented, but he only cultivates normal spells, Jalanash said. It should be the Titan's power from the north. As she spoke, Jalanash glanced at Chun Zhao subconsciously. Titan's power? Even Hercules was killed by Chun Zhao. Is this Titan's power related to Titan? Chun Zhao asked. Not really. It's just a spell that strengthens the body and strength. It's just using the name of Titan. Jalanash shrugged. This spell is very popular in the north, and it's very widespread. You can get the complete version for a few $100s. So cheap? Chun Zhao was surprised. Actually, this has to do with the government's policy decades ago. Back then, the government wanted to learn from China, so they forcefully collected some secret techniques and spells. Then they printed them into books and gave them to other spiritualists for free. That's why many spells were made public. Is there a problem? Chun Zhao asked, confused. Of course there's a problem. Not everyone is willing to publicize their magic, especially some families and forces. They have secret skills that others don't have, just like a high-tech company. Do you think those high-tech companies would be willing to publicize their technology for free? This also caused a large number of spiritualists to leave this country. The supernatural world, which was not strong in the first place, became even weaker after that. However, this also caused many spells to become relatively cheap, especially in the north. You can get a set of spells for a few $100s, or even dozens of dollars. Do we have one here? Let me see. A while later, a magic book called Titan's Power was delivered to Chun Zhao. To Chun Zhao, this spell was indeed very ordinary, even mediocre. But looking at the surveillance footage, Audrin used this mediocre spell to display a stubborn aura. He wasn't strong, but he tried his best to restrain Carrie. He created gaps and opportunities for his companions. Most of the time, Audrin's restraints were very weak. However, his effort was enough to make people cry. At the same time, he was like a cockroach in some hot-blooded anime. He couldn't be killed. It wasn't that he couldn't be killed. If Carrie really wanted to kill him, it would only be a matter of minutes. Instead, Carrie would give him a heavy blow every time, but he would still stand up regardless of his injuries. As for Aluntrai and Minette, their performance in this battle was a little worse. It was mainly because they had too little information about Carrie. From her personal information to her expertise in magic are all unknown. The only thing they knew was that she could summon an invisible magical beast. It was extremely powerful. Other than that, there was no other information. Therefore, it was very difficult for them to analyze and crack Carrie's weaknesses. They had entered the eyes of the supernatural organization because of their outstanding command and tactical abilities. However, due to various reasons, they were unable to display their abilities in this battle. Jialuan, go easy, Chun Zhao ordered. Jia Liwen felt a little helpless. She was actually going easy on him. The battle was intense. In order to defeat Carrie, Aluntrai and the others had to use some of their trump cards. It was originally used to deal with the final boss, the evil god. But if Carrie couldn't pass this stage, then there was no way to know about the evil god behind her. Carrie's summoned beasts were too difficult to deal with. Mainly, they couldn't sense them with their senses, so they were very passive. Haley's net of divine senses could detect the beasts, but her reminder was still a step too late. If the others couldn't sense the beasts' movements directly, they would continue to be passive. Minette, do you have a way to make those things appear? Minette glanced at Carrie in the middle of the battlefield and said in a low voice, "Dye those things. Do you have a spell like that?" As a matter of fact, Aluntrai must have thought of a way to dye an invisible enemy, but what they lacked now was this kind of magic. Aluntrai shook her head. "Ilev, do you have a way?" Aluntrai looked at Ilev. Ilev's performance in this battle was also very low. If it's to make her summon magical beasts appear, I don't have one. Ilev thought for a moment. But I have a spell that's a large-scale attack. I don't want to hurt you by accident. How large? This entire area will be covered by my spell. Let's give it a try. We just need to be careful. No, most spiritualists can't defend against my spell. Why? Is it very powerful? Aluntrai looked at Ilev in surprise. The spell completely covered this area. Seems like I've underestimated Ilev. It's not very powerful, but it's very troublesome. It's a scent attack. Aluntrai suddenly understood. No wonder it could cover such a large area. We can give it a try. The summoned magical beasts most likely have a sensitive sense of smell. Your scent attack might be very effective. Ilev took a step forward and suddenly shouted, Ao, Daluin, step back! As he spoke, Ilev suddenly pushed forward, and a red sphere shot towards Carrie. However, the red sphere was blocked by something halfway. Ilev quickly clapped his hands a few times, and several red spheres flew out. Several red spheres were shattered by Shu Wu again. However, the red spheres that were shattered suddenly filled with red dust. It hurts, my eyes hurt, achoo. Audrin was closer and was the first to come into contact with the red dust. This feeling. Haley soon felt it too. She felt like she couldn't even open her eyes. Tears kept flowing. The red dust wasn't some other spell. It was chili powder. Right now, the air was filled with chili powder. Soon, everyone started crying and coughing. So did Aluntrai and Manit, even though they were already on guard. But Ilev's attack still exceeded their expectations. This kind of attack was too vicious. Ilev's teammates were all caught off guard. So did Wu Jiao. But he was different. He could switch between physical and incorporeal. So this kind of smell and taste buds attack didn't work on him. But just because he was useless didn't mean Carrie was useless. She also didn't expect her opponent to use such a strange move. She also couldn't stop her tears and couldn't open her eyes. She lost. Chapter 3079. No one had expected Carrie to lose the battle for such a reason. Carrie might not be as strong as the leaders of the supernatural organization, but there was no doubt about her strength. Even though Carrie had been asked repeatedly to go easy on her, her strength was there, unless she was the one who stood still. Otherwise, there was almost no reason for her to lose. Then, Ilev gave him a reason. It wasn't even magic. Carrie couldn't open her eyes because of the spiciness. Her tears flowed profusely. At the same time, she kept coughing and sneezing. It was really an eyesore. Of course, it was a move that killed 1,000 enemies, but also injured oneself. Apart from Ilev, everyone was crying and coughing. No matter who went up, they would lose. Standing before the screen, Chen Zhao shuddered. He felt that he would lose too if he went up. If he was caught off guard, he would really lose miserably. The others didn't speak. They probably thought the same. This move was indeed a magical weapon to win by a surprise move. Of course, it had its uses, but it was limited. After using it once, the second time would be much less effective. Xiao, he waved her hand, dispersing the chili powder in the air. She went up to help Carrie up. You're so pitiful. Cough. I want to kill that asterisk shoal. Carrie's eyes were red and swollen. She was very hurt. When she opened her eyes, there was only a slit. She couldn't see anything at all. Tears were still streaming down her cheeks. Xiao, he cast a spirit cleansing spell on Carrie. Only then did Carrie feel a little better. If you want to laugh, laugh, Carrie said in annoyance. It must be hard to hold it in. Xiao, he tied her face and said seriously, no. Okay, it's a little funny. That was the truth. It was indeed hard to hold it in. Carrie had rushed to attack, but ended up in such a pathetic state. Xiao, he let go of Carrie. Stepping forward, she said, Okay, you've passed our test. Xiao, he took out a flower pot. This was the grandmother, liquid demon. The mother, liquid monster, stretched out its branches and entangled the 5 of them. The 5 thought that Xiao, he was going to attack them. However, They soon discovered that the tree trunks were healing their injuries. At the same time, it was also transferring a huge amount of magic power to them. Moreover, their mana had recovered, and the mana was still being transferred to them. They were all at a loss. This is the final prize. Before the end of the game, your mana will increase by 100-fold, and your mana recovery speed will be increased by 100-fold. Although this is only temporary, it is a very special experience for you. You can release magic to your heart's content, and you can try magic that you couldn't before. Aluntrai and Manit looked at each other. They didn't expect this kind of reward. However, what shocked them even more was that their next battle would be a battle that was 100 times stronger than them. What did that mean? Did this mean that their enemies would be 100 times more than in the past? Or even more terrifying? However, it had to be said that this was indeed a very special and meaningful experience. 100 times more magic power. They felt that they were close to omnipotent. All right, after this passage, your final enemy will be at the end. Now, they were more curious about who would play the role of the final boss, the god of evil. The path wasn't far, only a few hundred meters. At the end of the path was an empty stone wall. There was only a huge statue in front of the stone wall. Apart from that, there was nothing else. Don't tell me that the final boss is this statue. If that's the case, I'll be very disappointed, Haley said. Looks like I can blast it into pieces with one spell. Haley sounded very arrogant. She couldn't help it. The 100 times more magic power made her feel like she was floating. Not only her, but the others also felt the same. It seemed that no matter what kind of enemy they faced, they would be killed with one hit. 100 times more magic power. That was how confident she was. It probably has something to do with the statue. Should we try to attack the statue? Orderon asked. What do you think? Aluntrai looked at Manit. Let's try. There are no other clues here, Manit replied. Orderon, you do it. How much power should we use? Should we blast it into pieces? Blast it into pieces. Manit nodded. If the statue was the enemy, then they should use their strongest attack. Even if they couldn't directly win the battle, they could at least inflict the most damage on the enemy. Orderon shouted. The ground around him was shattered by his stomp. A terrifying pressure exploded from Orderon's body. Bang! Orderon dashed forward and punched the statue's chest. In an instant, the statue cracked open. The crack started from the chest. Then the stone shell began to peel off, revealing the flesh and blood inside. Everyone attack. Use your strongest attack. Aluntrai suddenly gave the order. Everyone came to their senses and attacked the statue. However, their attacks didn't seem to have any effect. The exposed body was unharmed. Instead, the stone shell covering it kept peeling off. Stop! Aluntrai waved her hand. Everyone stopped their attacks. Everyone stared at the statue, or rather, the giant hidden inside the statue. Finally, the last piece of the stone shell was completely peeled off. The giant's true appearance was revealed. It was a warrior wearing armor and holding a spear. His eyes were golden, and he looked like a Spartan warrior. Is he a human? Should be. Maybe it's the effect of the gigantification spell. Is he going to fight us like this? Other than being big, he doesn't look like anything special. So you're here to challenge him. The giant looked down at the 5 people in front of him. You're the evil god? All right, my boss told me to act as the evil god. The giant said, Have you prepared the sealing item? As long as we seal you, we win, right? Yes. The giant nodded and raised his right arm, revealing an electronic watch on his arm. The numbers on this watch represent my life force. You need to reduce my life force by at least 40% before you can use the sealing item. All right, can we start now? Aluntrai asked. Anytime. The giant nodded. Go. As soon as Aluntrai's voice faded. Suddenly, she noticed that the night scenery was fading away, replaced by a blue sky, white clouds, and green mountains. Welcome to my divine kingdom. Chapter 3080. Kingdom of God. The five of them had no idea what was going on. How did he manage to change the sky and earth? And it was indeed shocking. But then what? Did he want them to fight in a different environment? The bird song and the fragrance of the flowers were indeed pleasing to the eyes. But other than that, there didn't seem to be any other use. All right, Your Excellency, God of Evil, this place is not bad. Let's fight. Aluntarai said playfully, Sorry, I'm not your opponent. The giant waved his hand. Boom! Not far away, a mountain peak was about to crumble and fall apart. That's an illusion, right? Maybe. A mountain collapsing? Wasn't this a little too extravagant? Then, a giant that was a few hundred times bigger than the one before them appeared. The giant that was as big as a mountain stood up from the collapsed mountain. The giant's upper body was big and the lower body was small. However, the word small was relative. A body that was close to 100 meters in width was small in the eyes of normal people. As for its height, it was at least 400 meters, if not 500 meters. Then the second mountain collapsed. Then the third soon. Within their field of vision, dozens of mountains collapsed one after another. Under each mountain stood a giant. There were tall, short, fat, and skinny ones. Of course, even the shortest giant was at least 300 to 400 meters tall. Your Excellency, God of Evil, you're not asking us to fight them, are you? Aluntarai gulped. Do you think it's here to be an audience? Don't worry. You only need to defeat one of them. How about we fight you instead? Aluntarai said bitterly, You're not qualified. If you can't even defeat a warrior in my kingdom, what makes you think you can fight me? You call that thing a warrior. They were once defeated by me. All the defeated will become a warrior in my kingdom. Of course, don't worry, you won't. Is it because this is a game? No, because you're not qualified. The five of them wanted to curse. May I ask if it's possible to find a real evil god to play your role? I think you have a better chance of winning that way. I don't think so. I'm the only one under my boss who's closest to this role. I haven't asked for your name yet. Ares, yes, the Ares you've heard of. The five of them were dumbfounded. Are you kidding me? Everyone was here to play games. Do you have to be so serious? Why did you bring a war god here? We want a real evil god. He wasn't going to fight some god of war. How were they supposed to fight? Although they are not gods, they are still the legendary Titans. As a concession to you, you can choose your opponent. The five of them were going crazy. You call this accommodating? Everyone's gaze fell on Ares. Don't make the dumbest choice. They all knew that this would be the stupidest choice. But at least Ares' body size was still within acceptable range. As for the Titans, they couldn't even reach the toes of these Titans, so how could they fight? Aluntarai smiled bitterly. She now fully believed that the supernatural society would offer an artifact as a prize, because it was impossible for anyone to get the prize. Ares raised the spear in his hand high up. In the Holy Realm, I can use all the power here, including these warriors. Ares threw the spear. Everyone turned around and saw a mushroom cloud rising from afar. Everyone shuddered at the sight of it. Forget it. There was no way to fight this battle. Around 30 seconds later, a terrifying shockwave rushed towards them. The shockwave from a dozen kilometers away was already too much for them to handle. How were they supposed to fight? Manit and Aluntarai looked at each other and exchanged glances. Manit shook his head. Manit had been trying to determine if it was an illusion or not. But the result made his heart go cold. All of this was real. It wasn't an illusion, it was real. Everything here was real. Aluntarai took a deep breath. We surrender. Orderon's mouth twitched, but in the end, he didn't stop Aluntarai from surrendering. Surrender? Yes, we surrender. All right, the game is over, Ares said in a disappointed tone. Sir Ares, can I ask you a question? Go ahead. Can we really win against you? Of course not. Why would you think so? No, I mean it's within the rules of the game. Yes, death curse, dragon's blessing, devil's poison, God's power, if you use them well, I will have to suppress my own power according to the rules of the game. And according to the rules that the boss gave me, I am not allowed to kill you instantly. This is to increase the fun of the game. Everyone was speechless and a little regretful. Of course, even so, your chances of winning are still very slim. The gap between us is too big, allowing me to see many things that you can't. Although the rules of the game are against me, I still have the rules in my grasp. Ares said, most of your actions can't escape my eyes, which means it will be very hard for you to win against me, even with the restrictions of the rules. Ares paused for a moment before continuing. Next, it's time for me to grade you. Aluntrai, A dash Marnet, B plus Alderman, B dash Ilef, A plus Haley, B dash. Aluntrai looked at Ilev a little surprised. No one had expected Ilev to get the highest score, an A plus. Aluntrai's score was within her expectations. It wasn't perfect, but it was quite outstanding. Therefore, an A was acceptable. As her assistant, Manet often gave some appropriate suggestions and opinions during battles and tests, which helped the team a lot. Therefore, a B plus was reasonable. Haley and Orderon's performance could be said to be average. Some of them performed well, and some of them performed well in decisive battles. Therefore, a B was acceptable for their performance. However, Aluntrai couldn't accept Ilev's A+. Why? Based on his performance in the last battle, it can be said that he played an absolute role. As for the rest of you, your performance in the last battle was rather insignificant. Based on your performance, you will each receive a reward. As he spoke, Ares waved his hand, and 5 golden magic tools floated in front of him. As the one with the highest score, Ilev can choose first. Chapter 3081. Ilev frowned as he looked at the 5 glittering magic tools in front of him. He knew that they were all good stuff. Every single one of them was shining with a golden light, and every single one of them was filled with an indescribable rhythm. Just from the appearance of these 5 magical tools, he could tell that they were good things that he had never seen before. But he didn't recognize any of them. Ilev subconsciously looked at his teammates beside him. He noticed that Aluntrai was staring at the golden bracelet embedded with 5 gems of different colors in the middle of the bracelet. Aluntrai felt Ilev's gaze and responded with a smile. Ilev was a little depressed. It seemed like Aluntrai wanted that bracelet. Aluntrai definitely had better taste than him. What she wanted would most likely be something very good. Then should he snatch her things? Ilev was hesitating. Ares opened his mouth. You want the best magic tools? Or the one that suits you the best? Ares' words were like a bucket of water that cleared Ilev's mind. Yes, no matter how good a magic tool was, if it didn't suit him, he might not be able to unleash the full potential of the magic tool. It was better to choose the one that suited him the most. Ilev looked at the 5 magic tools and finally set his eyes on a golden staff. There was a purple crystal the size of a fist embedded on the golden staff. I choose the golden staff, Ilev said. Ares nodded and flicked his finger. The golden staff landed in Ilev's hand. Ilev was overjoyed when he held the golden staff in his hand. Good stuff. Ilev could feel the uniqueness of the golden staff the moment he held it in his hand. It might not be the best, but its attributes were extremely compatible with him. Plus, this staff had a powerful amplification effect on his magic. The other 4 were surprised by Ilev's choice, but also envious and jealous. The second one, Aluntrai will choose. Aluntrai stepped forward and chose the golden bracelet that she had been staring at. Aluntrai put the golden bracelet on her wrist immediately with a smile on her face, although she was not convinced during the grading. After all, she felt that her performance had always been the most outstanding in every battle or postgraduate entrance exam. Only in the last battle did she feel a little out of place. But Aleph was unhappy that he got a higher grade than her because of his outstanding performance in a battle. But at least the reward was not bad, although he did not choose first. But he still got the best prize, and it was also the prize that was most suitable for him. Aluntrai recognized the 5 pieces of equipment. These 5 pieces of equipment were the legendary gold artifacts. When combined, they formed a set of divine artifacts. They were the golden staff of Saint, the golden bracelet of Rylai's gift, the golden ring of Edarin's glory, the golden necklace of Hort, and the golden crown of Queen Daphne's proof. These 5 represented the 5 ultimate magic casters of ancient times. They inherited the magic tools of the former and created their own magic tools, all the way to the 5th Daphne. She was known as the Magic Empress, so the magic tools she created were also known as the evidence of Empress Daphne. If the 5 pieces belonged to one person, they would be able to unleash the power of a divine weapon. Aluntrai looked at Aleph. Aleph, are you selling your prize? You can name any price you want. Sorry, I don't plan to sell it for now, Aleph replied with a smile. Aluntrai knew when to back off. She did not try to persuade him further. Then Manet, Orderon, and Haley made their choices. Manet chose the golden ring, Orderon chose the golden necklace, and Haley chose the golden crown. Among them, only Orderon was not satisfied with his choice. Manet looked at Orderon. Orderon, I'll trade with you. Orderon was stunned. Forget it. This is good enough. Mine is not bad either. No, I regret it. Manet stuffed the golden ring into Orderon's hand. Orderon looked at Manet in surprise. Actually, among the 5 treasures, the golden ring was the one he liked the most. After all, he was an enhancer, so the staff was useless to him. The bracelet, necklace, and the crown that was obviously worn by a woman were not suitable for him. Only the ring was suitable for him. However, Manet chose the golden ring before him. Therefore, only the golden crown and the golden necklace were placed in front of him. In the end, he could only choose the golden necklace. Orderon looked at Manet. Obviously, the golden necklace was not suitable for Manet as well. Orderon, Manet, if you're not satisfied with the prize, I can trade with something else. I promise to trade with something of equal value or make it up to you with money. Audrin was a little hesitant, but Manet helped Audrin answer first. I'm sorry, we're not planning to sell it. Aluntrai felt helpless. She looked at Haley. Haley did not know much, but she was satisfied with her prize. Although she was the last one to choose, she felt that the golden crown was suitable for her. I'm not planning to sell it either, Haley said. Aluntrai could only give up. She only had 1 out of the 5 treasures. Although it was still an exquisite item, if she had 1 more, the effect would be greatly enhanced. If she had 3, the effect would be even greater. With each, the effect would be stronger. If she had 5, she would have the power of a divine gear. Unfortunately, none of the other 4 were willing to help. Okay, the game is over, Ares said, and put away the divine kingdom. They returned to the depths of the dark forest. They were still at the end of the path, in front of the mountain wall. It was as if he was in a dream. If not for the prize in their hands, they might really think that it was a dream. Just then, an Asian man walked out of the darkness. Aluntrai recognized the Asian man. He was the watcher from the first trial. I'm the president of the Supernatural Organization. I'd like to invite you to join us. Of course, it's not compulsory. There's no punishment either. You can accept or reject. Chen Zhao's gaze swept across the 5 people, and he said, You 5, let me introduce myself. The 5 did not speak. They seemed to be thinking. If you join us, the competition will be cancelled. Why? To be fair, Chen Zhao said matter-of-factly. Plus, the competition was organized to deal with the government. To be honest, it's very low level. Chapter 3082. The Supernatural Organization doesn't choose members based on your ranking. In fact, I've chosen a few members before. The one I'm most satisfied with only passed the first round. You guys aren't even the strongest. Chun Zhao said straightforwardly. For example, with Miss Haley's power, it's a miracle that she could enter the top 16. Chun Zhao said directly. Haley was a bit depressed. Will I be valued if I join the supernatural organization? Not for now. You can only be an outer member. Unless you're chosen by the leader of an official team, you can only be an outer member before you grow up. Haley was about to continue asking when Manit stepped forward. President, I'm willing to join. At the same time, Manit turned to look at Orderon without saying anything. But Manit's eyes seemed to be saying, let's do it together. Orderon also stepped forward. I'll join too. This was based on his trust in Manit. He got along well with Manit and was very happy. Manit's abilities and intelligence made Orderon feel comfortable. If he could continue working with Manit, it would be a good choice. If I join, will I have a chance to become the leader? Yes, Qin Zhao said with certainty. The supernatural organization will provide all the resources you need, but you have to sign a contract. In principle, it's a lifetime contract. Unless there are special circumstances, you'll always be a member of the supernatural organization. What resources can I get? Haley wasn't surprised by the lifetime contract. After all, most paranormal organizations requested for lifetime contracts. So, it wasn't surprising that the supernatural organization made such a request. Any resources, provided that you can use them, including asking the god of war for guidance. If you really need it, sure. Chun Zhao glanced at Haley in surprise. Then I'll join, Haley said. Aluntarai hesitated. Only she and Ilev hadn't made a choice yet. I want an official member, Aluntarai said. Sure, Qin Zhao said. There's a team that wants an intelligent member like you. What's the difference between an official member and an outer member? Like salary? I don't lack money. Although Aluntarai was from a small family, she was well off and did not lack money at all. I need more resources. In principle, the supply of resources is definitely sufficient. Regardless of whether you are an outer member or an official member, the resources are sufficient. As long as you need it, we will definitely find a way to supply it. What's the difference between an outer member and an official member? The core secrets of the supernatural organization are different, and the missions are different as well. Think about it. Do you think you'll improve faster if you go on a mission with a group of experts, or if you go on a mission with a group of people weaker than you? If that's all, it's not very attractive to me. If I want to go on a difficult mission, my family can even arrange for me to enter the Scarlet Church. Blood Mary of the Scarlet Church is a good friend of mine. That's nothing. You can even become an outer disciple of Dragon Tiger Mountain. If you want to show off your connections to me, I'm afraid you'll be disappointed. The people I interact with are the top few in the spiritual world. As for the resources those top sects can provide, they might not be better than the supernatural organization. Although the supernatural organization isn't the top sect, we have the top resources. What we lack is talent. Remember what my disciple told you before. You're not the only choice. Please remember this. I admire you, but it doesn't mean I admire you alone. That's right, Lu Wenshu said with a smile. You're a good friend of mine, and that's nothing. You can even become an outer disciple of Dragon Tiger Mountain. Aluntarai was frustrated by Chun Zhao's words, but she could not refute him. She wasn't the top, and her talent was just passable. Qin Zhao had made it clear that he liked her intelligence. What Aluntarai had said earlier was actually to make Qin Zhao value her more. But the reality was that while her family could arrange for her to enter the Scarlet Church, she would probably be an outer member, a miscellaneous member with almost no resources. In the end, her so-called bargaining chip was useless to Qin Zhao. Qin Zhao's words stabbed her deeply. He admired her, but not her alone. Okay, looks like joining the supernatural organization is the best choice. Aluntarai finally agreed. Qin Zhao looked at Ilev, who had not said anything yet. Ilev, what's your decision? I want to know how high I can go in the end. I'm afraid I can't answer that. Qin Zhao shook his head helplessly. Your height is determined by your talent and will. No one can answer your question. What's the level of an official member? What's the level of a captain? As the president, what's your level? There's no standard for an official member. For example, our Aluntrai is a special talent. Her intelligence is very suitable for the team, so she can be an official member. Of course, if she doesn't have any special talents, she has to be able to eliminate at least calamity-level enemies. Chen Zhao paused. As for the captains, you've seen them a few times before. For example, Helis in Death Valley is a captain. Gaia in Warrior Hill is also a captain. Jalanash in front of the Elemental Tablet is also a captain. There's no requirement for an official member, but a captain has to be able to deal with at least 2 or more calamity-level enemies alone. Everyone gasped. Deal with 2 or more calamity-level enemies alone. Even one was close to a legend to them. However, thinking back to those people, their strength was indeed not to be underestimated. Therefore, they had the strength to do so. As a team leader, they could accept it. As for me, you just need to know that I'm the strongest in the supernatural organization. Are you satisfied with this explanation? I accept this explanation. Ilev nodded. I'm in. Ilev actually did not know much. However, he had his own judgment. He was already satisfied with Chen Zhao's answer. Chun Zhao was also satisfied with this result. Chun Zhao had already made arrangements for them. Aluntrai had been asked to join the team by Yingjili. Marnet was also chosen by Jalanash to be her student, so both of them became official members the moment they joined the society. Ilev, Orderon, and Haley were all outer members. Chapter 3083. You're Manet, right? Follow me now. After the 5 new members were brought to the supernatural organization, Jalanash went to Manet. The other 4 were a little surprised that Manet was actually the first one to be chosen. Manet was 22 this year, but Jalanash looked even younger than he was. Manet followed Jalanash. Jalanash brought Manet to her team's meeting room. Everyone in the team was there. He's the vice captain, Dongya Tianchi. You can get to know the others. Jalanash didn't give Manet time to talk to his teammates. She pulled down a blackboard. Find a seat. We have a mission on hand. You can listen in. Recently, the crypt demons sent a request. A strange demonic beast appeared near their nest and kept invading their nest. Currently, more than 10 crypt demons have become that demonic beast's meal. Manet raised his hand. Jalanash glanced at him. What's your question? Captain, may I ask what a crypt demon is? It's a non-human race with extremely high intelligence. They live underground and had conflicts with the supernatural organization before, but they've resolved it. Now they're allies. They provide us with some special resources, and we help them solve some problems. Jalanash spoke quickly. This was her personal style. Okay, you're new. There are many things you don't understand. If there's anything you don't know, you can ask Dongya Tianchi first. Manet looked at Dongya Tianchi and nodded. The demon is estimated to be disaster grade. Its fire element, about 15 meters tall, weighs 20 tons, has great speed and strength, and is good at sneak attacks. Jalanash looked at everyone. That's all we know. Do you have any suggestions? I'll wear fire resistance equipment. I should be able to fight it in strength, Genkira said. So I'll mainly hold it back. You guys are in charge of supporting and attacking. And a set of strength equipment, Jalanash said. According to the information from the crypt demons, the demon's explosive power can even send 100-ton rock flying. Captain, is it more suitable to wear ice-type equipment to fight against fire-type magical beasts? Because the battle will take place underground, Jalanash said. Ice-type equipment will be greatly restricted. Or create a low-temperature zone in a designated area, and then lure the magical beasts into that low-temperature zone. Is that possible? Manet asked. Jalanash couldn't help but take another look at Manet. It's doable. We can use it as a plan, but we need to be fully prepared. If this plan fails, We'll have to face this monster head-on. Also, Dongye Tianchi, remember to bring him to get a set of equipment after the meeting. Soon, the team came up with a plan. Manet's suggestion was accepted. This also allowed him to relax a little. It seemed that there was still a huge gap between his strength and that of the majority of the team members. However, there was still room for him to perform in his field of expertise. "Captain, when do we move?" "We'll start the operation tonight. Are you up for it? If you're worried about your safety, I'll allow you to be absent from this operation. After all, the environment for this operation is rather extreme, and your personal strength is indeed lacking." "Captain, I still want to follow the team. I won't be a burden to the team." "All right, then follow us. You definitely don't have to do anything in this battle. Do you understand?" "Understood." Manet nodded. He was a little nervous about the upcoming operation, but he still knew his role. "Manet, how is it?" Orderon looked at Manet's newly equipped magical equipment. "It feels pretty good." Manet had just received a set of magical equipment. Manet felt like he was floating. His entire body was made of dragon materials. "We'll be following the team tonight," Manet said. "You're moving already?" Orderon looked at Manet enviously. "What about you?" "Actually, I've already returned from the operation," Orderon said with a bitter smile. "Me, Haley, Ilef, and a man called Morid. We just carried out an exorcism operation. The three of us were all defeated by an excessively powerful evil spirit. Then Morid made his move and ended the battle in 30 seconds. Morid? I heard he's a member of Gaia. He's an official member too? Then why is he doing the mission with us?" This is the rule of the supernatural organization. The higher-ups will assign missions to each team, and if it's a complicated mission, the team will work together to complete it. If it's a simple mission, it'll be done by a single member. That member can complete the mission alone, or he can bring a newbie to complete the mission, like you. You've learned so many rules in such a short time. You need to learn the rules as soon as possible. It'll be good for you. You're going to move soon. Don't you need to prepare? Just now, the vice captain told me that because of my power and because it's my first mission, he doesn't have high expectations for me. He just wants me not to be nervous and to relax. As for how I relax, that's up to me. That's why I came to chat with you. What mission are you on?" Just then, Aluntarai walked over. Aluntarai also changed into an official member's equipment. "Manet, how's your side?" "Not bad," Manet replied. "How about you?" Aluntarai and Manet were both intelligent characters. Both of them became official members at the same time, even though the two of them belonged to different squads, but it was inevitable that they would compare each other. Just then, Gaia walked over. "Aluntarai, follow me." Aluntarai immediately followed Gaia. They arrived at the Tower of Trials. "Press your hand on that mark." Around 10 seconds later, Aluntarai came out. "How do you feel?" "Wah!" Aluntarai knelt on the ground and vomited. "You don't look very comfortable." Aluntarai wiped the residue off her lips and barely recovered. "Captain, what's that?" "The trial is also the standard. When you have the power to pass the first level, you'll have the power of an official member." "What's the standard?" "Kill 100 monsters and automatically pass the first level." Chapter 3084. 2 days later, Manet walked out of the crypt demon's cave weakly. The fresh air almost moved him to tears. But more importantly, he had benefited a lot from the process of this operation. After the mission, Manet felt like he had grown a lot, even though he barely fought and even had teammates to protect him. But Manet felt like his body and mind had been remolded. His captain and teammates were powerful. The enemies were also powerful monsters. Whoosh! His teammates came out of the cave too and let out long sighs. "No matter how many times I come, I can't get used to the crypt demon's lair." Lick Grove looked defeated too. Jalanash followed behind. "You stayed here for 3 days and 3 nights. You're still not used to it?" "Stop. I don't want to talk about the past. Every time Lit Grove thought back to when he first met Gene C. He wanted to cover his face and run. Captain, the powerful magical beast's entire body is a treasure. Are we just going to give it to the crypt demons? We're not giving it to them. It's not convenient for us to bring it away. The crypt demons will dismember the magical beast for us. They'll keep the meat for themselves and pack the magic materials. They'll send them to us in 2 days. They'll send them along with a reward. Reward? Dollars? Of course not. What are you thinking? They're crypt demons. Do you expect them to use human currency? They'll give us underground specialties. What specialties? Earth essence. It can increase magic power. Also, it increases as much as you eat. There's almost no upper limit. In other words, if you have unlimited earth essence, you can increase your magic power limitlessly. Of course, it's limitless in theory. I don't know if there's really no upper limit. Earth essence. That's expensive, right? If you sell it on the market, it's indeed very expensive. Lit sold it before. You can ask him how much he sold it for. Lit Grove snickered. His father had been in financial trouble before, so he didn't have much pocket money. Then he sold the earth essence on the market for pocket money. Manet turned to look at Ritter Grove. The price on the black market is about $30,000 per gram. If you sell it to a magic shop, the price will be even higher. However, the magic shop's transaction method is too troublesome. It will take at least a week for a large transaction to go back and forth. So if you are in urgent need of money, it is more convenient to sell it to the black market. 30,000 USD per gram? How much will we get this time? About 100 grams. Jalanash said, give 40% to the headquarters. We'll split the remaining 60%. I'll take 15%, and you guys split the rest equally. Manik gasped. There were 6 people in their team. Jalanash would take 15%, and the remaining 45% would be divided equally among the 5 of them. This meant that he would get 9 grams of earth essence. According to the black market price, wouldn't he get 270,000 US dollars? I advise you to use your first harvest on yourself. There won't be anyone to protect you next time, Lit Grove said. With your current magic power, these 9 grams are enough to double your magic power. $270,000 won't be enough to double your magic power. Manette instantly calmed down. He immediately understood the crux of the matter. In order to establish a foothold in the team, one had to perform well. Not every mission could be solved with one's brain. Some missions were purely combat. If one wasn't strong enough, would he have to rely on someone else to protect him? If you're really short of money, you can make some deals with the crypt demons. Some of their specialties are quite valuable. Of course, we have a principle. We definitely can't cheat our allies. As for how you do it, it's up to you. Leader, I understand. President. Haley finally returned to the headquarters. What is it? Chun Zhao looked at Haley, who had come to find him. President, you said last time that I can ask Ares to teach me. You didn't lie to me, right? But you need it. Do you? Yes, I do. With your power, you are far from being able to get a god to teach you, right? It's not magical guidance, Roland said. Then what? Please allow me to keep it a secret. Qin Zhao shook his head. If you can't give me a satisfactory answer, I won't let Ares come into contact with you. I only want to see him once. Once is enough. Give me a reason. Chen Zhao was determined. I'm a descendant of God. Haley said, You? A descendant of God? Qin Zhao studied Haley. It's not awakened, Haley added. Haley added, My family has always said that we are descendants of the noble northern Protoss. Which myth is the northern gods from? Chen Zhao asked, confused. It's the Norse myth, Haley said. My family has always called it the northern gods. You said you're a descendant of the Norse gods? Yes. Haley nodded affirmatively. Then why are you looking for Ares? I want to know how to activate the bloodline of God. Sure, come with me. If there was anyone more suitable to teach Haley, it was undoubtedly Frigga. After all, Frigga was a diva in Norse mythology. Qin Zhao brought Haley home. Frigga, look at her. Haley didn't know Frigga. She didn't understand why Chun Zhao brought her to this woman. Didn't they agree to let her meet Ares? Frigga was currently teaching little Jerlin and Larissa magic lessons. She glanced at Haley. Huh. The bloodline of Bader's descendants is too thin. Haley was shocked. What was this woman's background? She could see through her in a single glance. Hello, dear lady. May I know who you are? Frigga. Who does this name remind you of? Diva? How is that possible? Logically speaking, Bader's descendants were Frigga's descendants. However, this wasn't the case among the gods. Frigga and Odin belonged to two different divine races. The two gods had given birth to many descendants, but the god of thunder was the only child who was considered the heir of Odin. This was because Thor was the most perfect descendant to inherit Odin's bloodline. Their other children had inherited more of Frigga's bloodline. While Bader had inherited more of Frigga's bloodline, it didn't mean that his descendants had inherited Frigga's bloodline. The bloodlines of the gods were very clear, so Frigga's first sentence was Bader's descendant, not her own. Chapter 3085. So, boss, is she looking for me? Frigga glanced at Haley and then at Chen Zhao. Yes, she said, she wants to awaken the divine bloodline. Is that right? Haley nodded. She stepped forward and said, Honorable lady, I want to awaken the divine bloodline. What do I need to do? Frigga glanced at Haley and then shook her head. It's useless. It doesn't matter whether you awaken it or not. How is it meaningless? If it's a bloodline within 10 generations, it might be of some use. It'll help your cultivation. But if you awaken the divine bloodline after more than 30 generations, your cultivation will drop instead of rising. Are you sure you want it? How can this be? How can this be? You're lying to me, right? No matter what bloodline awakens, it requires energy. If a normal person awakens their bloodline, it consumes their life force. That's why those with special bloodlines sometimes don't live as long as normal people. For someone like you who has awakened magic, awakening your divine bloodline will require a huge amount of magic power. With your magic power and the level of your bloodline, you'll need to inject at least half of your magic power. Your divine bloodline is so thin. Even if it awakens, it probably won't be of much help to you. So, do you still want to awaken the divine bloodline? Then awaken it. Her cultivation is so low anyway. It won't be a pity even if it's all destroyed. Qin Zhao said casually. It'll only take a few months to recover her current cultivation. Frigga glanced at Qin Zhao and then at Haley. What's your decision? Haley was clearly not as open-minded as Qin Zhao. After all, this concerned her future. Qin Zhao could easily make a decision. That was because it had nothing to do with him. But Haley was different. Let's do a simple calculation, Frigga said. How old are you now? 17, 6 months. How old were you when you started learning magic? 8. In the 7 years before the age of 15, I estimate that your magic value is about 10% of your life's magic value. Now, you only have 6 months left before you turn 18. According to the usual ratio, half a year is 5% magic value. So, from the age of 15 until now, plus the magic value before the age of 15, it is 35%. Even if you consume 15% of your magic power to awaken your bloodline, you will still have 20% of your magic power left. After awakening, with the blessing of the Protoss bloodline, your growth speed is expected to increase by 10%, which is 65% of your magic power growth in the rest of your life. In other words, even if you awaken your magic power, you will lose more than you gain. But this was the truth. Qin Zhao shook his head. Your calculation method is wrong. You didn't calculate her growth after I provided her with resources. According to the supernatural organization standard, she didn't even accumulate 1% magic power in her previous life. So, I think her awakening value is much higher than not awakening. Also, the purity of her bloodline can be increased. Haley suddenly looked at Chan Zhao. Bloodline purity can be increased? Frigga glanced at Chan Zhao. Use your ancestor's blood. But my ancestor is the god of light, Balder. If you're willing to sign an even stricter contract, I'll help you get Balder's blood, Chan Zhao said, smiling. Haley's eyes widened in disbelief. What kind of contract? You must serve the supernatural organization for the rest of your life. You're not allowed to betray the organization. Once you betray the organization, it has the right to enslave your soul. She had to admit that Chen Zhao's requirement was a bit too much. Haley hesitated. Chun Zhao continued. According to Frigga's calculations, it's meaningless even if you have all the magic power in your life. Other than the two newbies, Minette and Aluntrai, all the official members of the supernatural organization have more than 100 times more magic power than you. When you reach their level, you'll realize that magic power will become weaker and weaker. How? Doesn't more magic power mean more power? Qin Zhao and Frigga both laughed. Even if I have 100 or 1,000 times more magic power than him, I'm still not his match, Frigga said. How can that be? Even if a herbivore eats 10 times more than a carnivore, it still won't be a match for a carnivore. When you reach our level, you'll understand. No, actually, when your magic power accumulates to a certain level, you'll realize that no matter how much magic power you accumulate, it'll be meaningless. The characteristics and compatibility of magic will show. Right now, you're still in the stage where whoever has more magic power can cast more spells and more powerful spells. Now, no matter if it's me or him, we can cast even the most powerful spells easily. By then, we won't be pursuing magic power anymore, but strengthening our magic characteristics and compatibility. Whatever, it's still too early for you right now. Haley didn't really understand, but Frigga's words still helped her a lot. A smile appeared on Frigga's face. Looks like you're quite smart. Are you the Celestial Queen? Haley asked carefully. If you think so, then so be it. If you don't, then so be it. Thank you for your teachings, Celestial Queen Frigga. Please help me awaken. Have you made your decision? Rather than saying it's a decision, it's more like I have no other choice, Haley said. Haley's talent was average, but she was smart. She knew where her future was. Since the supernatural organization could give her a future, it was not a bad idea to sell her future to them. What do I need to do? You don't need to do anything. Just stand still. Frigga walked up to Haley and tapped her forehead with her finger. For Frigga, it was easy to help a descendant of a god awaken her bloodline. It wasn't like she was turning her into a demigod. She was just awakening her bloodline. Haley felt an unfamiliar power flow into her body. Then something in her seemed to be ignited. At first, it was a bit warm, then it became hot. Use your magic power to dispel this feeling. Otherwise, it'll automatically absorb your life force. If you don't want to die young, pour in as much magic power as you can. Haley was shocked. Was it going to start just like that? She'd thought there would be some kind of ceremony. But the process was so simple that she didn't know what to do. Chapter 3086. Frigga had miscalculated something. Haley's awakening process was smoother than expected, but this wasn't a good thing. On the contrary, it meant that her bloodline was thinner than Frigga had imagined. If Haley used up more of her magic power reserves, it meant that her divine bloodline was stronger. But she had only used up 30% of her current magic power reserves and completed the awakening. This meant that her divine bloodline was very, very weak. Frigga, looks like you're wrong sometimes, Qin Zhao said, chuckling. He didn't really mind. With Haley's talent and potential, it didn't matter if it was a little more or a little less. Anyway, he was going to upgrade her bloodline. Frigga wasn't angry. She didn't even get angry at her own misjudgment. Her ancestor used some method to awaken. This method can succeed, but the price is sacrificing the potential of her descendants. Won't her awakening now sacrifice the potential of her descendants? These are two completely different awakening methods. Moreover, would I choose the inefficient method that would bring me endless trouble? All right, Frigga had her own pride. After sending Haley to the car, Qin Zhao said as he drove, "I'll bring you Baldur's blood as soon as possible. After you try it, you can sign the contract. Also, when we get back to the headquarters, you can go to West and apply for some resources. It can replenish your magic power as soon as possible. President, there are many, many gods like you in this world." Actually, Haley wanted to call him a monster, but after some thought, she felt that calling him a god was more suitable for their current relationship. "I'm not a god, but even gods serve you. Ares, the god of war in Olympus, and even Frigga, the queen of heaven in Norse, serve you. I'm just stronger than them," Chen Zhao said calmly. "There are many ways to become strong. Becoming a god isn't the only choice. Of course, some of my friends choose to become a god. President, you didn't become a god because being a god isn't good? It's not that it's not good. It's just that it's not suitable for me. Moreover, with my current strength, I can even call myself a god. The gods that you and I know are actually powerful existences with certain characteristics. In the eyes of ordinary people, as long as they are powerful and exceed their understanding, they can be called gods. Since you're so powerful, why is the supernatural organization's reputation so small? There are benefits to having a small reputation. The government won't be afraid, and the other powers won't be wary. In Chinese terms, it's like getting rich quietly. No one will go against a weak, supernatural organization. Even if they want to be our enemy, they won't take us seriously. We have the power to obtain large amounts of resources without attracting attention. What's so bad about that? Haley was speechless. Okay, he was right. Before she joined the supernatural organization, she had deliberately inquired about its reputation. The results shocked her. Apparently, the supernatural organization had a hard time getting rid of the spirits in a haunted community. But now that he thought about it, he realized how ridiculous the rumor was. Any one of the members of the supernatural organization that she knew could easily wipe out a haunted community. The supernatural organization's current situation was good. The newcomers all performed well. The improvement was rather obvious. Of course, this was because they were too weak to begin with. Therefore, any growth would be especially obvious. For those who only had 1 yuan, if they got 1 yuan, it would be doubled. But for those who had 100 yuan, even if they got 1 yuan, they would be ignored. The youth supernatural fighting competition also ended successfully. The people from the government happily picked up the top 4 contestants. This meant that they would be part of the government from now on. The top 4 were also happy that they had finally found an organization. Chen Zhao entered the Tower of Trials again. Level 12. Chen Zhao had recently consolidated his ascension state cultivation. He felt that there was an obvious improvement, so he planned to challenge level 12. When Chen Zhao entered level 12, he saw an extremely vast and desolate world. However, the spiritual qi of heaven and earth was extremely dense here. Chen Zhao spread out his senses. He hadn't found the guardian of level 12 yet. Chen Zhao was surprised. There would be a difficulty increase every 3 levels. It was considered a small obstacle. At level 6, the difficulty increased exponentially. It was considered a big obstacle. Chen Zhao believed that level 12 was also a big obstacle. So, the guardian would be abnormally powerful. But where was the enemy? In the previous stages, the gatekeepers would take the initiative to attack. But now, Chen Zhao hadn't seen the guardian after so long. Did he have to find the guardian himself? Chen Zhao flew into the sky. There was nothing there either. However, when Chen Zhao flew to a higher altitude and looked down, he realized that the world below was a giant head. Chen Zhao didn't know if it counted as a head. The head turned around. It was a demon's head. It was probably bigger than the moon. The demon's had opened its mouth and spat out black and red flames. Could this demon's skull be the guardian that he was about to face? Or was the world itself the guardian? Just then, the demon's head discovered Chen Zhao. Chen Zhao focused his eyes. The demon's head was no longer spitting out flames. Instead, it was sucking. Of course, the suction wasn't enough to suck Chen Zhao in. The mountains, air, and flames on the surface of the demon's head were all sucked into its mouth. The next moment, the demon's head suddenly spat out all the demons. Chen Zhao sucked in a breath of cold air. These demons were all at least mid-level, and they all had domains. However, their eyes were empty and lifeless. What was this demon's head? Or who was he? Could he create demons? But it seemed like he was still a step away from creating life. The demons he'd created were extremely powerful, and there were countless of them, but he couldn't create life. Chen Zhao waved his arm, and dark lava covered the sky. Instantly, the dark lava covered the sky and enveloped all the demons. Then it swallowed, and the area of the dark lava grew by quite a bit. But no matter how much the dark lava grew, it didn't mean much to Chen Zhao. The dark lava couldn't increase Chen Zhao's upper limit anymore. The dark lava turned into a giant fist and smashed down on the demon's head. The demon's head was smashed off its original position. Chen Zhao couldn't help but frown. This demon's head seemed a bit weak. If it was only at this level, it wouldn't be a threat to him. Was this the 12th level? Chapter 3087. Chen Zhao looked at the huge demon head before him. It seemed to be right in front of him, but Chen Zhao was actually hundreds of kilometers away. It was so huge that Chen Zhao could even feel its terrifying aura. But the demon head didn't pose any threat to Chen Zhao. After all, it only had a head left. Chen Zhao couldn't imagine if this was a complete body. How powerful would it be? But right now it was just a head. Perhaps to ordinary people or normal spiritualists, he was still an existence that could destroy the world. But in Chen Zhao's eyes, it wasn't enough. Plus, it was hard to say how much consciousness this demon head still had. It attacked Chen Zhao purely out of instinct, or perhaps because of some kind of will. Moreover, its attacks were meaningless. Chen Zhao didn't care how many things rushed at him. He just kept charging forward. He didn't stop until he was in front of the huge mouth. The demon head was still attacking Chen Zhao in the same way. It sucked the surrounding matter into its mouth and then spat out flames and created demons. Chen Zhao thought for a moment and entered the demon head's mouth. He wanted to see how this thing worked, or rather, how it created demons with flesh and blood. But when he entered the demon head's mouth, Chen Zhao realized that the interior was completely different from what he had imagined. This was a space where countless demon corpses were floating in the air. This space was many times larger than the demon head itself. There was a ball of fire in the center of the space, like the center of the universe. Countless demon corpses surrounded the ball of fire. It was like a meteorite in a galaxy. Inner world. Chen Zhao was surprised. This is an inner world. This place was too similar to Chen Zhao's own inner world. But there were also huge differences. Of course, everyone's inner world was more or less different. It was mainly determined by one's cultivation technique and personal needs. For example, Chen Zhao's inner world also had a ball of fire in the center that looked like a sun. But the entire space was filled with scorching heat. All energy matter was roasted by the heat and turned into flames in the end. This inner world was very different from Chen Zhao's. Just then, Chen Zhao realized that some demon corpses were attracted by the ball of fire in the center. When they got close, the demon corpses shot out a ball of fire and merged into the ball of fire in the center. Then, the demon corpses turned into ashes and dissipated. But in the distance, another demon corpse appeared. No, they were not real corpses to begin with. They were all pieces of flesh without life or souls created by the space. This inner world would not bestow them with life and souls. So even if they looked like demons, they would not be able to defeat them. But in reality, They were no different from the steaks sold in the supermarket. A perfect inner world could generate its own energy and sustain itself. Chen Zhao's inner world was complete. It was the same for the inner world. However, the circulation of Chen Zhao's inner world was different from this one. Chen Zhao sank into deep thought. After a long while, he carefully approached the ball of fire in the middle. The flame was very hot, but it wasn't enough to hurt him. Moreover, it didn't use the same method to deal with Chen Zhao. Chen Zhao tried to analyze it and understand its principles. This ball of flame was ownerless and did not have any consciousness. So, it didn't resist Chen Zhao's power. Instantly, countless images surged into Chen Zhao's mind. The origin of this huge demonic head. It wasn't a demon at all. He had never been one. It was made up of countless devil corpses, millions of devil corpses. In the unknown era of hell, countless demons fought and killed each other. Devil corpses piled up continuously, and new demons were born from the corpses. Then, new demons joined the battlefield. Countless demon corpses formed the abyss. Countless new demon races were born from the abyss. After an unknown amount of time, demon kings were born from the abyss. Then, they divided the territory and set the rules. From then on, the war stopped. No more demon corpses were added into the abyss. Naturally, no new demons were born. The abyss was gradually forgotten by the demons. After the abyss gave birth to 6 demon kings, it had long lost its source. Now, all that was left were just leftovers. Regardless, even if it was leftovers, to most demons, it was still an unreachable existence. Some demons entered the abyss by mistake and were immediately swallowed. Suddenly, the dark lava in Chen Zhao's body seeped out uncontrollably. "Come back!" Chen Zhao immediately controlled the dark lava and retracted it. However, after coming into contact with the ball of fire, the dark lava seemed to come alive. Chen Zhao felt that the dark lava seemed to be evaporating like energy. But after evaporating, the energy automatically attached to Chen Zhao's body. Change the structure? Chen Zhao was a bit surprised. This time, Chen Zhao didn't stop the dark lava from flowing out. On the contrary, Chen Zhao actively let the dark lava flow into the fire. Absorb this ball of fire? Chen Zhao tried to absorb this ball of fire, but after absorbing it into his body, it couldn't merge with Chen Zhao's power. Soon, it seeped out of Chen Zhao's pores and returned to the center. However, Chen Zhao discovered that his gluttonous bloodline was also boiling in his body. It seemed that because of this ball of fire, Chen Zhao's gluttonous bloodline was also changing. Chen Zhao absorbed the ball of fire again. It was still absorbed into Chen Zhao's body obediently. Then it seeped out of his pores. But Chen Zhao could clearly feel that after the flame passed through his nerves, the gluttonous bloodline in his body started to become active. It also started to turn into energy, like the dark lava. It was even closely connected to Chen Zhao's bloodline. In the past, the gluttonous bloodline and Chen Zhao's human bloodline were completely different. But now, the gluttonous bloodline was merging with Chen Zhao's human bloodline. Chen Zhao seemed to understand something. This ball of fire didn't contain any energy. Instead, it contained the genetic factors of countless demons. Gluttony and the King of Wrath were born from here. They were also children of the abyss. So, their genetic factors also existed here. No matter what Gluttony and the King of Wrath had gone through after being born, they could grow to the level of demon kings. But this place had their foundation. So, this ball of fire just instinctively started its work. It would merge the genetic factors of Gluttony and the King of Wrath and reshape it, just like how it had created countless demon races in the past. Chapter 3088. Chen Zhao called this flame the primordial flame. This flame couldn't create a demon king. It just instinctively created and fused all kinds of demon bloodlines. Then it created new demons. Chen Zhao realized that his hair was falling out. It was replaced by a head of white hair. Qin Zhao rubbed his head with a bitter smile. It seemed like he would have to dye his hair when he got out. Qin Zhao knew the changes in his body like the back of his hand. Even at his level, it was impossible. He could clearly feel every change in his body. Even if it was a cell disease, Qin Zhao could notice it. This was also why diseases couldn't attack Qin Zhao anymore. What was supernatural? First, it was power that surpassed nature. One's body was also a part of nature. One's body was the most difficult part to defeat. Right now, Qin Zhao had done exactly that. Qin Zhao absorbed the flame into his body again, and then expelled it. However, the bloodlines of Gluttony and King of Wrath were extremely high-level bloodlines. So, there wasn't much in the flame that could make up for the genetic factors of these two bloodlines. This flame was more about fusion. It helped Qin Zhao better fuse the two bloodlines. This flame could record genetic factors and help people fuse bloodlines. It was like a fusion machine. Qin Zhao suddenly thought of a question. Could he add God's blood? He had a lot of God's blood. Qin Zhao took out a drop of God's blood and dripped it on the flame. At the same time, he swallowed another drop. Then he absorbed the God's blood again. It worked. When the flame flowed in his body, the God's blood in his stomach seemed to be activated too. It fused into Qin Zhao's bloodline. A very slight change. It might not even be 1 in 10,000. It was even thinner than Haley's bloodline, which had been separated by 30 or 40 generations. One reason was that Qin Zhao's bloodline was already strong enough. Other than fusion, this flame could also be used as an optimization program. It could write more outstanding factors into the bloodline. Qin Zhao tasted more God's blood, but most of it didn't change him at all. After all, a lot of God's blood was repeated. Plus, the God's bloodline wasn't very helpful to Qin Zhao. Qin Zhao used more than 10 portions of God's blood from different deities. In the end, he increased the God's blood from 1 in 10,000 to 1 in 1,000. It was still very thin. Qin Zhao took out a piece of flesh. Hercules' flesh. This was the first time Qin Zhao had killed a god. Although he was only a demigod, Heracles still possessed power that surpassed most gods. Back then, Qin Zhao had destroyed Hercules. However, Qin Zhao still thought that the flesh of a god was good stuff. He had collected a lot of Hercules' flesh. Now it came in handy. Qin Zhao ate a small piece of Hercules' flesh. Then he inhaled the flames. At that moment, Qin Zhao felt a very, very special way of using power. This method of using the bloodline to activate the body and use power. This method could turn the muscles and skin into steel, and it could also be rearranged to form a stronger body. As expected of the god of strength, he was similar to Qin Zhao. They both walked the path of strength, but the two had completely different ways of using power. This was originally an ability unique to Hercules, but now it was Qin Zhao's. Qin Zhao felt that he had a small breakthrough again. Originally, the primordial regression technique was only at the 4th level, but now he could open up to the 5th level. This was because he had grasped Titan's method of using power and integrated it into his own system. Qin Zhao tried to load this mode. His muscles wriggled quickly. His body didn't change, but Qin Zhao felt that his basic constitution had increased by leaps and bounds. In Qin Zhao's eyes, the primordial flame was a huge treasure. No divine artifact or treasure in the world could compare to the primordial flame. Now Qin Zhao understood. The 12th level wasn't about fighting but understanding. Only by completely understanding this level could he pass the 12th level. But Qin Zhao still couldn't understand it completely. So Qin Zhao didn't pass. He needed to study it for a long time. He couldn't completely understand it after 1 or 2 times. When Qin Zhao walked out of the Tower of Trials, the people nearby thought that he was a stranger when they saw the white-haired Qin Zhao. Only when they got close did they realize that it was Qin Zhao. "President, are you planning to change your style?" But white hair really doesn't suit you. As an experienced hair dye enthusiast, Morad had tried almost all kinds of hair colors, including green. Chun Zhao glared at Morad. I'm going back to black. President, how about I recommend you a barber? Chun Zhao rolled his eyes. It was just hair dye. Why the hell did he recommend a barber? President, it's a magic barber. How's he different from a regular barber? Can he set off fireworks on my hair? Not really. He can use his magic to control the length of the customer's hair. If that's the case, I can do it too. I don't need anyone else. Chun Zhao still liked a crew cut, mainly because, as an enhancer, he almost always fought hand-to-hand with his enemies. He was afraid that one day someone would pull his hair. It wouldn't affect the outcome, but in the end, there would still be this worry. Fine, pretend I didn't say anything. Morad shrugged. Chun Zhao left the supernatural organization's headquarters directly. He found a high-end barber in the city. Help me dye my hair black. Thank you. A young and pretty female barber came up. In fact, this barber was high-end because almost all of them were pretty girls. Sir, do you need to do a treatment first? Dyeing your hair is really bad. No matter where, barbers seem to like to promote themselves. No matter where, barbers like to promote themselves. How long? Half an hour. Chen Zhao checked the time. Okay. Chen Zhao lay down on the bed. The pretty barber massaged his head. She bent down and whispered into Chen Zhao's ear, Sir, we have more services here. Thank you, but no need. In the United States, there were a lot of businesses that sold dog meat under sheepskin. Beauty salons, gyms, or food bars. But these places were all high-end. Even if they didn't need special services, they still had to pay a lot. Moreover, the staff didn't work for just anyone. From the floor-to-ceiling windows, Chun Zhao could see the people in the parking lot. Therefore, they could clearly see what kind of cars the customers who came here were driving, and thus determine how much money they could get from the customers. Clearly, Chun Zhao's car tempted them. Sir, I know many positions and I can... Chun Zhao took out a few $100 bills from somewhere. Wake me up in half an hour. I'm going to sleep. Yes, sir. The hairdresser's face lit up with joy. Chapter 3089. Chun Zhao was pushed awake, but he realized that he wasn't in a hairdresser's shop. Instead, he was in an underground tunnel with a few leather bags tied to him. It was the beautiful hairdresser from before who pushed Chun Zhao. Miss, isn't the service in your shop a bit too rich? Sir, do you not understand your current situation? Or do you already understand and still have the courage to talk to me like this? Fine. Do you want money or your life? Smiling, Chun Zhao looked at the beautiful hairdresser. The hairdresser pushed Chun Zhao into an underground room. There were two people there. They wore white coats and covered their faces with masks. You have two choices now. Call your family and pay a ransom, or we can sell your organs for money. The two men lifted Chun Zhao's shirt and moved their scalpels around Chun Zhao's stomach. When the bone-chilling scalpels touched his skin, one's hair would stand on end. Of course, Chun Zhao was an exception. Can I have a mirror? Chun Zhao asked. Mirror? The three people in the basement were confused. What mirror? I'm here to dye my hair. I want to know how it's done. Ha. The two men in white coats laughed out loud. If it's hair, I can shave off all your white hair. That way, you won't have to worry about it. Just then, a drop of water dripped from the basement and landed on one of the men's face. Fuck, how come it's seeping? Of course, this is an underground sewer. How can you expect the environment here to be good? I heard that someone died here before. The two men discussed as if no one else was around. Hey, let's get down to business, the beautiful woman called. All right. Kid, what do you think? Do you want money or your life? Give me a mirror first. I want to know if I dyed my hair. Fuck. The three all looked unlucky. This guy was so troublesome. The beautiful woman took out a mirror. Look, it's done. She decided that after she got the money, she would shave off all of Chen Zhao's hair. Another drop of cold liquid landed on the man's face. Fuck! The man looked up and his expression changed. Lot, what are you doing? Saxy, don't bother me. Hurry up and make your choice. Lot, head. At this moment, a lump of rotten flesh fell from above, directly enveloping Lot. Wow. What is this? The rotten flesh began to seep into Lot's mouth, nose, and ears. Cough, cough. Hurry up and get rid of this thing. It's too disgusting. But Sax and the beautiful woman couldn't help but take a step back, because they could see that the rotten meat was alive. Hurry up and help me. I'm in so much pain. Lot was wrapped up by the rotten flesh and could not get up. Furthermore, the skin that came into contact with the rotten meat was rapidly swelling and blistering. Lot struggled and pulled over the bed with Chen Zhao tied to it. Chen Zhao also stood up and stretched his limbs. He turned a blind eye to what was happening around him. It was as if it was an ordinary thing. Save me! Save me! Lot saw that his companion was ignoring him. He could only pray that Chen Zhao could save him. Chen Zhao squatted down and used his finger to pick up the rotten flesh. He glanced at Lot, who was buried underneath. Then he shook his head. You can't be saved. This thing has already entered your body. Even God can't save you. Soon, your body will become a part of it. You're not afraid of this? The beautiful woman looked at Chen Zhao in fear. This thing, a living rotten corpse. It should be someone who died in this sewer. After the corpse rotted, a spirit took over. In the end, the spirit was also corroded by the corpse and became like this. Chen Zhao waved his nose. This smell is really strong. The two hiding in the corner wanted to go around the wall and escape. However, the zombie seemed to be aware of their plan. It suddenly stretched out a few rotting strips of flesh, like a spider web, blocking the exit. The living rotten corpse seemed to know that Chen Zhao was not easy to deal with, so it did not intend to attack him at all. Lot, who was wrapped up by the living rotten corpse, was already silent. He was not dead yet, but his body had lost its function. This only made him feel more pain. Chen Zhao did not plan to help him. This had nothing to do with him anyway. Just then, the beautiful woman's pupils suddenly contracted, because a shadow had appeared behind Chen Zhao. The shadow slowly formed into a figure, the Grim Reaper. It was the legendary Grim Reaper. Chen Zhao felt it too. He turned around. Blackie, why are you here? I'm here for them. My death sense tells me that they must die. The beautiful woman's face paled in fear. Since she had seen Blackie, she had naturally heard their conversation. But you, why are you here? Chen Zhao adjusted his collar. Would you believe me if I said I'm lost? Blackie ignored Chen Zhao. He just paced around the basement, waiting for the two to die. Just then, Sax grabbed a bench and tried to use it to push his way out. But one of the living rotten corpses, strips of flesh suddenly turned into a fist. It smashed the bench and stuck to Saxy's arm. Saxy struggled and tried to shake it off. He wanted to throw the strip of flesh away. The corpse's poison seeped into Saxy's arm through his skin. The bone-piercing pain made Saxy struggle even more crazily, but he couldn't get rid of the meat stuck to his arm. Instead, the meat stuck even tighter and climbed up his arm like a snail. This guy is hopeless, Chen Zhao lamented. Just then, the beautiful woman suddenly knelt before Chen Zhao. I beg you, save me. I'll do anything you want me to. My body, my everything can be yours. Chen Zhao, you have a wife. If you have an affair, I'll tell Fei Lai, Blackie said darkly. Fuck. Chen Zhao rolled his eyes. I'm not interested in her. I curse you. I curse you to die a horrible death. The beautiful woman roared hysterically. I hope you go to hell after you die. Sorry, going to hell might be the best reward for me. I know many people there, Chen Zhao said, chuckling. Chen Zhao chuckled. Oh, You're probably going down there too. I'll give you something. Consider it the fee for dyeing my hair." Chen Zhao walked up to the beautiful woman and tapped her forehead with his finger. A spark drilled into her body. Then it seeped out of her skin and returned to Chen Zhao's palm. Chapter 3090. Chen Zhao heard the beautiful woman's cries behind him, but this didn't stop Chen Zhao. A while later, Blackie followed him out too. The woman's cries stopped too. "Is it over?" "Yes." Blackie nodded. When Chen Zhao left, he sealed the entrance of the sewer. As an outstanding citizen, Chen Zhao even called the police to report the incident. He said that the barber shop was involved in prostitution. In the basement, the woman who was supposed to be dead suddenly opened her eyes. She looked around blankly. There was nothing. What happened? Was it a dream? The woman slowly climbed up. There were still some traces left at the scene. The woman's expression turned serious. She recognized the traces. The woman quickly searched her body. She wasn't sure if she was still alive. Suddenly, the woman felt nauseous. Then she vomited on the spot. The thing she vomited out was actually that rotten corpse. The woman shrank into a corner in fear. However, the zombie didn't attack her. Instead, it slowly wriggled out of the basement. The woman felt her stomach churn again. Why was the zombie in her body? Why wasn't she dead? The woman's mind was blank. She walked in a daze. Suddenly, she realized that the exit was gone. The woman couldn't even cry out for help. She had no choice but to find another way. The woman walked in the smelly sewer for a long time. Finally, she saw light up ahead. The woman hurriedly rushed out. The exit of the sewer was the sea. The woman didn't care. She jumped into the sea below. After washing off the filth and stench, she gulped down a few mouthfuls of seawater and climbed ashore. The woman just lay on the reef, panting heavily. The woman didn't know what was wrong with her, but it was definitely not normal. Just then, a few punks dressed in punk clothing arrived nearby. They saw the woman in tattered clothes. Although she was in tatters, she was very pretty. Very pretty. These hooligans seemed to have some bad thoughts. "Hey, pretty, do you mind playing with me?" The woman got up and sat up, although she had made some deals. She'd made some deals before, but she clearly didn't trade with these punks. The people she was willing to trade with were either rich or powerful. Men who were willing to spend thousands of dollars on her every time were her targets. Therefore, after she recovered some of her strength, she planned to leave. However, those gangsters surrounded her relentlessly. "Beauty, don't be like this. We are very sincere." It was getting late, and there weren't many people around. After all, they were near the exit of the sewer. It was definitely not a bustling area. Therefore, this also gave these gangsters courage. As soon as they went up, they wanted to use force. Their hands and feet took advantage of the situation as they pushed and shoved. "Get out of my way, you scum." The woman pushed the gangster in front of her away a few steps. "Fuck you." The hooligan flew into a rage out of humiliation and slapped the woman's face. At this moment, an evil flame rose in the woman's heart, and she returned the slap to that hoodlum. However, the hooligan's neck was twisted and he fell to the ground. "Andrew!" "Fuck!" She knocked Andrew out. "Teach this woman a lesson." The woman suddenly felt pain in her abdomen. A dagger had been stabbed into her abdomen. The woman's pupils suddenly turned red. Her fingernails all fell off, and sharp-boned spikes grew out of her fingertips. "Go to hell!" The woman used all her strength to slash the face of the hooligan who stabbed her. The other hooligans were terrified and turned to run. However, at this moment, the bone spikes on the woman's 10 fingers suddenly shot out. The backs of those hooligans were all pierced, and each bone spike left a bowl-sized hole in their backs. The woman looked at the corpses and came to her senses. The woman almost collapsed. She finally realized she wasn't normal. No, she was very abnormal. She seemed to have become something that she couldn't understand. At this moment, the woman's body had already returned to normal. The woman didn't understand what she had become. Maybe that man knew. No, he definitely knew. He was the one who did all of this. The woman was now even more afraid that she would need to eat people. She was afraid that she would completely become a monster. She walked barefoot for an entire night before returning to her home. She hid in her room, not wanting to go out and not daring to go out. Fortunately, her diet didn't change, except that her appetite had become very big. Nothing else had changed. After a few days, the woman began to familiarize herself with her changes. She realized that she had 3 non-human forms. One of them was the form that she had killed those hooligans on the coastline on the first day. However, this form couldn't be actively controlled and would only appear when she was emotionally agitated. On the second day, she appeared when she received a call from home. Her grandmother had passed away. She was her only relative. She called this form the silver scale form. When she entered this form, her rationality would be slightly reduced, but overall, she could still maintain it. Silver patterns would appear on her body, and some silver scales would appear on her skin. A curved horn would grow on her left forehead, and her body would grow slightly taller. Her 10 fingers would become abnormally sharp, and her pupils would be red with a strange pattern. The second form was the mad demon form. She could actively transform her body into the form of a demon. Her upper body would become abnormally strong, and even her feminine characteristics would disappear. Her entire body would be pitch black, and she would be 3 meters tall. Her strength would become extremely terrifying. She had used this form to sneak out at night, and her hands could barely lift the front of a large truck. The third form was the dark soul form. She could turn her body into a ghost-like form that could pass through physical objects. This form didn't have any sense of touch, smell, or taste. In fact, she couldn't eat at all. Of course, she didn't have any attack power. At least, she didn't have any lethality against physical objects. However, she used this form to steal some money. At certain times, this dark soul form was very useful. However, it was different from a ghost. Although this form was similar to a spiritual body, it could be seen by ordinary people. After a few days, she had gradually gotten used to her current changes. She didn't have the initial panic, and now she was secretly happy. This meant that she didn't have to worry about money anymore. She could break into any place, including the bank's vault. Of course, her dark soul form couldn't move her physical body, so it was obviously unrealistic to steal from the vault. At most, she could go to some stores to steal. After entering the store, she would find the surveillance's blind spots, destroy the surveillance, and then steal the cash register. However, a bank vault was a completely different concept. Chapter 3091. West was surprised that Chen Zhao had come to the headquarters every day in the past half a month. But this was also a good thing. At least he could make decisions on the spot. As the president of the supernatural organization, Chen Zhao wasn't good at anything other than his combat ability. West was basically the one who did all the work for him. But there were still some things that Chen Zhao had to decide on. Chen Zhao entered the Tower of Trials every day. On the 12th floor, he used the ball of primordial flame to refine his bloodline. After a few days of refining, Chen Zhao had obtained a sliver of primordial flame. It was very, very small, only 1,000th of the total amount of primordial flame on the 13th floor. But this sliver of primordial flame still contained the genetic factors of billions of demons. He only had 2 to 3 hours every day. As soon as he left the Tower of Trials, he was caught by West. President, ever since the spiritual tide, supernatural cases have been increasing. Do we not have enough people? If not, we can recruit more. No, it's a man-made crime using supernatural powers. There are at least 30 supernatural criminal groups in California. They're very troublesome. Unlike those supernatural incidents, the evil spirits or magical beasts that breed don't hide. They basically stay in one place and cause trouble. However, the supernatural criminal groups are different. They know how to hide themselves. There are 30 in California. At least 30. Are there any in L.A.? There are 2. Our men have been keeping an eye on them for a long time, but they haven't made any moves. Maured and Henry are now undercover agents in those 2 organizations. Recently, a group of people appeared. Judging from the crime scene alone, they are clearly different from the previous 2 criminal groups. It should be the 3rd one, but they are probably a group of newbies. Our men have already locked onto all the members. Give me the information. I'll wipe out the 3 criminal groups in L.A. tonight. California was too big. Even with the supernatural organization's layout, it was too far for them to reach. But L.A. was enough. This was where the supernatural organization's headquarters was. At the same time, Chen Zhao saw L.A. as his own territory. Even the gangs were tightly controlled by the supernatural organization. Not to mention that it was a supernatural crime syndicate, which was absolutely intolerable. West handed Chen Zhao a few documents. Forget about Morid. His strength is considered close to the top. Henry, I remember that his ability seems to be stink, right? A few days ago, Henry used his ability to help that organization complete a bank robbery. Fuck, Henry's life has improved a lot recently. Will he be wanted by the police because of what he did? Through the power of the government, I have suppressed Henry's wanted order. Henry has a family after all, Qin Zhao said. Try not to give these undercover jobs to them. There were many people in the supernatural organization, and many of them were carefree people. Qin Zhao first went to Henry's undercover organization, an organization called Blessed Power. The name sounded like a cult, but it was actually a criminal organization. There were only 10 core members in the organization, and Henry was one of them. The organization was unlucky to have recruited Henry. Moreover, they had even recruited him as a core member. It took them half a month to control a small gang in a neighborhood. Tim and Bodhi were the ones who reported the power of grace to the supernatural organization. Tim and Bodhi had originally controlled the small gang. However, they suddenly lost contact with them. The original leader also disappeared for no reason. He was replaced by someone who didn't care about them at all. Tim and Bodhi sent someone to communicate with him, but he was chopped up and sent back to them. They were furious at the time. After investigating, they found out that the new leader was also controlled by someone. After a few rounds of investigation, they found out that it was the power of grace. Because of the special structure of the power of grace, almost all the core members were gangsters in the past. Although this supernatural criminal group was using supernatural powers to commit crimes, the rules were still the same as those of the gangs. So West chose Henry at that time. Henry had been a gangster before, so he knew the rules and style of these gangs. The result wasn't too surprising. Henry got into the power of grace with just a bit of contact. Henry wasn't outstanding in the supernatural organization, but compared to the group of people from the power of grace, he could basically kill half of them by himself. However, he wasn't confident that he could keep everyone, so he played his part. First, he collected information about the core members of the power of grace. The power of grace wasn't a secretive organization at all. They didn't care too much about keeping it a secret. It seemed that the power they just obtained made them feel like they could be arrogant. In just a few days, Henry knew all the information about the other 9 core members of the power of grace. Qin Zhao called Henry. President, why are you calling me? Is it convenient to talk on your side? Yes, go ahead. I'm in charge of dealing with the power of grace. We'll start today. Are the core members all in LA now? They're all here. President, do you need to take care of such a small matter? Henry couldn't believe it. Chen Zhao was the trump card of the supernatural organization. Usually, anything that could make Chen Zhao take action wasn't a small matter. In his opinion, the power of grace was definitely the most insignificant of insignificant matters. He didn't expect Chen Zhao to take care of it. Wasn't this a bit too much? No one's free, so I'll take care of it. It's mainly because Wes thinks I'm a bit free recently. Okay, that was a good reason. Call your people. They'll be in charge of sending the survivors to the headquarters to be locked up and clean up the scene. When dealing with supernatural criminals, usually killing them on the spot was to clean up the traces. If they weren't killed on the spot and the crime was confirmed, they'd kill them directly if the sentence was more than the death penalty. If it was just a small matter that didn't warrant the death penalty and they weren't killed on the spot, they'd be captured and locked up in the headquarters. President, there's someone with me. Let's be the first. We're at Mingo Building now. When Chen Zhao arrived at Mingo Building, Henry's subordinates were also there. Henry's team was basically doing the dirty work of the supernatural organization, which was to clean up the place. So they weren't surprised by this kind of mission. But this was their first time working together with Qin Zhao. The two went straight to the building's security room and turned off the surveillance equipment. Qin Zhao and the rest went upstairs. Chapter 3092. Henry, you did well in the last operation. Here's your share. Henry looked at the $10,000 that was pushed to him. Then he looked up at the man before him. Majeb, we got a few million. Why do I only get $10,000 in the end? Henry, you're new, so you don't know, Majeb said, chuckling. The organization needs to develop, so it can't be evenly distributed. He definitely wouldn't tell Henry that everyone could get $100,000. However, he kept most of Henry's bonuses. He wasn't worried about Henry at all. Henry's ability was good, but his combat ability was just passable. Releasing stench? This ability might cause trouble for him, but it was harmless. At least, that was what Majeb thought. Henry chuckled as he picked up the stack of money and slid it in his hand. Majeb, I don't like greedy people, so our cooperation is over. Henry, I'll say the same thing to you. I don't like greedy people. Those who don't know how to be satisfied die the fastest. I agree. I think so too. Henry nodded. Take this money and apologize to me, or I'll let you learn the rules again. Just then, the door was violently smashed open. Majeb stood up abruptly and stared at the dozen strangers who came in. Who are you? This is my private apartment. Get out. Chen Zhao walked to the sofa and sat down. With a wave of his hand, Majeb was pressed against the wall by an invisible force. Henry, who is he? Majeb. His ability is to change colors. He's like a chameleon, and he can grow scales that can block bullets. He has the ability to climb on smooth walls. His strength and speed are much faster than normal people, and he also has heat perception, Henry said as if he was familiar with everything. Henry, I was just joking with you. The rest of the money is in my safe, including my savings. If you want it, it's all yours. When Majeb saw this scene, how could he not understand the situation? Henry had betrayed him and the organization. However, he thought that Henry had joined another organization of the same type. The man in front of him had used some unknown force to press him against the wall. This ability was clearly much stronger than him, so he decided to admit defeat first. In the worst-case scenario, he would just follow the other party. In any case, it didn't matter who he followed. The power of grace had only been established for a little over a month. Therefore, to the majority of the members, there was no loyalty. What crimes did he commit? Murder, rape, basically any crime that you can think of, he has committed. Crack! Magdeb's neck was broken. Guild leader, we need to be more thorough. His vitality is quite tenacious. The next moment, Majeb's body was squeezed into a ball. Not a single drop of blood was spilled. He used illegal means to seize this house. The victim is now living on the streets. Henry's men quickly cleaned up the scene. Clean up all traces of Majeb. President, we found a large amount of cash in the safe. It's over $10 million. Make up for the money from the bank robbery last time. Divide the rest between Henry and everyone in this operation. Everyone was overjoyed. They were now in a legitimate profession. Moreover, he could earn extra income as a legitimate profession. Their income wasn't low, but getting so much money in one go was still very happy. This still made them very happy. Henry looked at his men and said, "Marco, I know you've been in contact with some bad things recently. You'd better ban it for me. Otherwise, I'll ask Miss Hellies to send you to her private domain to cure your addiction." Chen Zhao glanced at Marco and asked strangely, "Is Helis still in charge of detoxifying people?" "Last time, I helped Miss Helis a little. She said that she could fulfill 3 of my wishes. Most of the time, Chen Zhao wouldn't ask about other people's private lives. However, touching drugs was clearly unacceptable. Marco, I'll give you a month. After a month, I'll take you for a checkup. If there are any traces of drugs left on your body, I'll send you to the farm where I raise monsters. You'll become their food." "Got it, President. I'll try my best." The others felt lucky that they hadn't touched those things. "I'll give you 10 minutes to clean up the traces here," Henry urged. "We'll be busy tonight. After all, we can't earn extra money every time we do an operation." Henry's sweeper department didn't earn much. Most of the time, they could only rely on their salary to support their families. Of course, their salaries weren't low. In Los Angeles, it was far above the average income. They were originally gangsters, so they had many bad habits. Eating, drinking, and gambling were basically normal operations. There were even some who were addicted to drugs. Chen Zhao planned to purify the sweeper department. He didn't care about bad habits like eating, drinking, and gambling. However, drug addiction was too harmful. It could even become a hidden danger. They were all internal members now, so he couldn't kill them. Moreover, they were in contact with internal secrets. He couldn't let them do whatever they wanted. So, Chen Zhao planned to force them to detoxify. A few minutes later, "Okay, next stop. Henry, lead the way." With Henry leading the way and Chen Zhao as a guarantee, everything went smoothly. It would be strange if it didn't. What was Chen Zhao's level? What was the level of the power of grace? Although all the members of the power of grace had strange abilities, they were an entire galaxy lower. However, there was a difference of an entire Milky Way galaxy. How could he resist? Henry was only responsible for leading the way. His subordinates went to clean up the scene. They wasted almost all their time on the road. In one night, the dozen or so members of the sweeper squad made hundreds of thousands of dollars each. Apart from Henry, only one of the 9 people survived. It wasn't that Chen Zhao was too ruthless, but that the other 8 people deserved to die. The one who survived could even be considered a misdemeanor. He was a young man who had just obtained superpowers. He hadn't done anything sneaky before joining the power of grace. After learning that the main purpose of the organization was to kill and commit arson, he wanted to leave. However, he was afraid of being killed, so he delayed until now. Chen Zhao didn't plan to lock him up for long. He planned to let him out after 2 or 3 months after teaching him a lesson. After the young man was caught, he thanked Henry profusely. He thanked Henry for helping him out. Chapter 3093. Chen Zhao spent half a night on the power of grace. Morad was faster because there were only 3 people he needed to capture. The name was simple and obvious. It was an antisocial organization called Darkness. People with this name were basically waiting to be killed. Unsurprisingly, when Chen Zhao caught the boss, he was still sleeping. He didn't realize he had been caught at all. He was also a young man in his 20s. Chen Zhao was only a few years older than him, but this guy gave off the feeling of being childish. His ability was special. He could control other people's movements through shadows. It was similar to puppetry. He could even control other people's words. The other 2 were even less impressive. One could teleport short distances, and the other could lock people in mirrors. Chen Zhao was hit by the skill that could lock people in mirrors. He used a bit of force, and the mirror cracked. The 3 concluded that they were very weak. Henry and the other scavengers were somewhat disappointed. There was nothing to be gained from this dark organization. Next was the new criminal organization. It was also formed by a group of hotheads. It was called Paradise of the Fallen. There were many people, but this Paradise of the Fallen had a benefit. They seemed to want to keep it a secret. Everyone lived together. This gave Qin Zhao a chance to catch them all in one fell swoop. There were 15 people in the organization. Although it had only been established for a short time, they had already done many illegal things. Of course, they were all small cases. They stole from supermarkets, stole from supermarkets, stole from supermarkets, and stole from supermarkets. The most serious case was a home invasion. They stole an expensive watch from the victim, worth tens of thousands of dollars. They also injured the victim. This was the most tasteless supernatural organization and spiritualists Qin Zhao had ever seen. Chen Zhao, Morid, Henry, and 2 subordinates. This was an abandoned manor. Judging from the size of the manor, the person who used to live here was definitely a super rich person. However, it was estimated that it had been abandoned for several decades. There was moss everywhere. The Taoist fences and other things were still intact. White pillars could be vaguely seen under the moss. Qin Zhao walked to the iron door. The dozing member heard the noise and opened his eyes in a daze. "Who are you?" The next moment, a vine wrapped around his neck from behind without any warning, and then smashed him against the wall twice. He was dead. "Emoida, you've gone too far. You should show the leniency of a senior towards a junior." "Guild leader, he's older than me." "All right." The iron door in front of him was violently opened. Then the alarm inside rang loudly. Qin Zhao scratched his forehead. "This is my plan. I don't want to wake them up one by one." Everyone laughed without saying a word. What happened? A group of people ran out of their rooms in a panic. Someone came in. A stranger. "Where's the gatekeeper? Who's on guard tonight?" "That's Halliday. But since that group of people broke into this place, Halliday is either dead or being controlled." This was the truth. A woman walked out. "What are you panicking for?" The woman looked to be in her 30s and was dressed like an elite in the workplace. He didn't know how strong he was, but his aura was quite strong. As soon as she spoke, she stunned everyone present. Vanessa looked at their boss. She'd just been recruited into this organization not long ago. Coincidentally, she and the members of the organization had their eyes on a supermarket that day. Then they teamed up, but then they had a conflict because of the uneven distribution of loot. Then this woman named Asai's appeared and easily defeated her. Asai's then extended an invitation to her. Vanessa was worried that she would be killed on the spot if she didn't agree. After joining the organization, she realized that everyone here had special abilities. She'd thought that she was special, but after coming here, she realized that she wasn't that special. At least, she wasn't that special. "Let me see how many uninvited guests there are." Asai's closed her eyes as if sensing. After a few seconds, she opened them again and said, "Only 5. Hearing that, everyone heaved a sigh of relief. Some were worried that it was the police. But if it was the police, there wouldn't be only 5. "Only 5. We can fight 3 against 1. Asai's encouraged everyone. Asai's encouraged everyone. Have some confidence in yourselves. Every one of you is the most special." Asai's gaze fell on Vanessa again. "Vanessa, work with me." The reason why Asai's had taken a liking to Vanessa was because Vanessa's ability was extremely compatible with his. She didn't know why, but when Vanessa was beside her, she felt that her power could keep increasing. Just then, footsteps came from the corridor. With Chen Zhao in the lead, the 5 walked in casually. "Sorry to interrupt your meeting." Chen Zhao clapped his hands. "Who's the kindergarten class monitor? Come out and talk." Asai's frowned. Everyone's expression turned furious. How dare he call the fallen paradise a kindergarten? How arrogant was he? How much did he look down on them? Chen Zhao suddenly saw Vanessa. He couldn't help but tilt his head and stare at her. Vanessa, on the other hand, hid behind Asai's in fear. She already recognized Chen Zhao, the culprit who'd turned her into this. You're not dead? That's weird. Chen Zhao looked at Vanessa in confusion. Asai squeezed her head. You know him. He's the one who turned me into this, Vanessa whispered. Why aren't you dead? Chen Zhao asked directly. Sir, who are you? Why did you trespass on our territory? More accurately, you trespassed on my territory, Chen Zhao said. I don't remember trespassing on your territory. All of LA is my territory, Chen Zhao said with a smile. You have a big appetite, but do you have the power? Asai clearly thought that Chen Zhao was here to steal his territory. She wasn't worried. As long as it wasn't the government, there was nothing to be afraid of. Asai was different from the others. She'd recruited newbies, young people who'd just awakened their abilities. These young people knew nothing about the spiritual world, so they were easy to control. On the other hand, she was a senior spiritualist. She'd developed her senior abilities to a certain level, so she was much more powerful than the others. You look different from them, Chen Zhao said, looking at Asai. Asai's age, tone, and attitude when facing Chen Zhao's group of uninvited guests all seemed to be that of a senior spiritualist. Chapter 3094. Have you ever felt despair? Asai was rather arrogant. In an instant, her body emitted a strong sense of oppression. However, Chen Zhao, Morid, and Scavenger were all unmoved. They weren't affected by Asai's pressure at all. What a joke! This level of pressure was enough to make the supernatural organization retreat. Everyone here had been baptized by dragon might. This level was really not enough. Asai's expression darkened. Vanessa had been by her side for so long. Her power had increased by several levels, but her pressure couldn't shake any of them. Just then, a young man couldn't hold it in anymore and attacked Chen Zhao first. One of the young man's hands froze into an icicle. He swung his fist at Chen Zhao. Chen Zhao didn't even turn his head. The icicle on the young man's fist shattered. Then the bones in his arm shattered too. He was sent flying. Asai's pupils constricted. Back off. He's not someone you can handle. Chen Zhao looked Asai up and down. Show me your power. Asai's arm suddenly swelled like a demon's hand whose skin had completely split open. She swung it at Chen Zhao. At the same time, an arc of flames swept past, but the flames dissipated before they could even touch Chen Zhao. Demon bloodline? This is a fire demon? But it's not enough. Chen Zhao took a step forward. You can attack at will before I reach you. Asai's right arm turned into a demon's hand again. But unlike the red and cracked skin on the left arm, Asai's left arm was covered in pitch-black scales. Terror demon? Chen Zhao was shocked. The same person had two demon bloodlines? Chen Zhao himself had two demon bloodlines, the Glutton bloodline and the King of Wrath bloodline. But it was almost impossible for the two bloodlines to coexist or even be produced. For example, his old friends Zophi and Oris in Hell. Their Abidos only inherited the dragon bloodline, but the woman before him actually had two demon bloodlines. Asai's terror demon hand-grabbed at Chen Zhao. A ball of black gas tried to bind Chen Zhao. However, the black gas dissipated before it could even touch Chen Zhao. Asai couldn't help but reveal a solemn expression. She withdrew her hand of Balrog and hand of terror. His figure began to change rapidly, turning into the form of a demon. It was a 4-meter-tall demon with a pair of wings on its back, a pair of legs on its head, and dark red skin. A tyrannical demon. 3 demonic bloodlines. Chen Zhao was even more surprised. No, not demonic bloodlines. Did you borrow demonic power? The tyrannical demon clenched its claws, and 2 beams of red light condensed in its palms, turning into 2 large red swords. Everyone from the paradise of the fallen looked at Asai in shock. Asai exuded an aura that made them feel uneasy. Vanessa sensed that Asai's transformation was similar to her own, but it was also different. She couldn't tell what was different. Speaking of demons, Chen Zhao was probably the most familiar with them. The number of demons Chen Zhao had seen and killed was more than the number of grains everyone present had eaten. When the drow messenger fell into hell during the trial, Chen Zhao had slaughtered millions of demons. Asai felt his entire body brimming with power. 2 red swords slashed at Chen Zhao, but the result didn't change. The 2 red swords shattered instantly. They didn't even touch Chen Zhao. Asai felt the pressure pressing down on her face, forcing her to choose to retreat. Chen Zhao took another step forward. Asai transformed again. This time, she became a skinny demon. The demon's limbs were as thin as bones. Dead soul curse demon, a demon that was good at cursing. Asai waved his arms, and the curse seemed to materialize. It pounced at Chen Zhao with a howl of agony and agony. But Chen Zhao took another step forward. Asai also felt the pressure. She'd been very confident. Her power was already outstanding. Now that she had Vanessa, it was like adding wings to a tiger. Logically speaking, no one should be able to defeat her. But she tried a few spells, but they all ended in failure. She couldn't even touch Chen Zhao. "Vanessa, lend me your power." What should I do? Vanessa obviously hoped that Asai could defeat Chen Zhao. Only then would she have a chance to figure out what exactly had happened to her. Use mad demon form. Vanessa hesitated for a moment, but still used mad demon form. Chen Zhao saw Vanessa's change. The demonic genes he'd left in Vanessa's body with the first flame had taken effect. Not only did she not die, but she'd also fused with the demonic genes. Logically speaking, her soul should have been stolen by Blackie and then thrown into hell. Why didn't she die? Chen Zhao also realized that after Vanessa transformed, she started emitting a special power ripple. Asai, under the influence of this power ripple, actually experienced an obvious improvement. "I feel it. Power, this is power." Asai was overjoyed. The improvement was even clearer and more obvious than the first time. Chen Zhao was surprised. Vanessa wasn't that strong, but she could make Asai improve so much. It wasn't just a few % improvement. It was a multiple. Veins popped on Asai's face. Arrogance was written all over it, as if he'd already won. With a howl, Asai turned into a wolf-headed demon. The demon's body seemed to be made of muscles. Every inch of it was filled with explosive power. Flames burned on its claws, and its eyes were covered in blood. Wolf demon. However, this wolf demon was 10 times stronger than a pure-blooded one. Crack! The tiles under Asai's feet shattered. Her subordinates were also forced back by her terrifying aura. This power is amazing. It can even rule the world. Morid, Henry, and the others behind Chen Zhao all burst into laughter. This was too funny. What kind of misunderstanding did she have? Rule the world? Was she dreaming? What are you laughing at? Asai lunged at Chen Zhao's group. However, her claws still couldn't reach half a meter in front of Chen Zhao. Hiss! Her claws cracked in an instant, and she was sent flying by the impact. Is this the power you get to rule the world? Aren't you underestimating the strong in this world? Chen Zhao was already standing before Asai. Asai stared at Chen Zhao in disbelief. How is this possible? Even this can't work? This was impossible. This was impossible. That's right, you're only defending. You haven't attacked at all. Your defense is only outstanding. Chapter 3095. The scavengers and Morid stared at Asai in disbelief. Chen Zhao lifted his eyelids and pointed his right index finger up. A small black ball formed between his fingers. Morid and the others took a step back. They all knew Chen Zhao's move. After all, Chen Zhao had used it more than once. Even if they hadn't seen it with their own eyes, they'd heard about it from their colleagues in the supernatural organization. But Ah didn't sense the approaching danger at all. Her face was full of confidence, as if she was proud of her wit. Chun Zhao waved his finger lightly, and the black ball shot toward Ah suddenly lowered his head. Everyone looked at him too. Ah saw a huge hole from his shoulder to his chest. It was at least 20 to 30 centimeters wide. Suddenly, Ah heard a loud sound behind him. Looking back, he realized that half of the mansion and the manor were gone. The mountain that the manor was on was also gone. It was completely bare, as if something had pierced through it. Ah didn't make a sound. He fell to the ground. Everyone felt chills down their spines. They hadn't gained power for long. They were still in a state where their abilities were invincible, and they were still in a state where they thought that their abilities were invincible. But now, no one dared to think like that anymore. Vanessa trembled all over. She'd hoped that Ah could defeat Qin Zhao. At least, in her eyes, Ah was definitely very, very powerful. But now, she finally understood the difference. So, please cooperate. Based on the crimes you've committed before, your sentence ranges from half a year to 3 years. But if you dare to resist, we have the right to execute you on the spot. Please don't test our patience, Morad said. What happened next was simple. The youngsters didn't dare to resist at all. Chun Zhao looked at Vanessa. Tell me, why aren't you dead? I remember Blackie took your soul away. I don't know. Vanessa looked at Chun Zhao in fear. She'd thought that she could get some information from Chun Zhao, but now it seemed that Chun Zhao didn't know either. The night's operation ended. Chun Zhao found Blackie. Blackie, do you remember the woman we met in the sewers? Yes. Why? She's not dead. Oh. Blackie's reaction was very flat. Your reaction? You already knew? I'm a little surprised, but not too surprised. What do you mean? I'm surprised that she's still alive. I thought she'd be killed by a zombie. Aren't you going to get her soul? No, there are 2 souls in her body, or rather, twin souls. When she and her twin sister were in her mother's womb, her sister died, and her sister's soul has always been in her body. Generally speaking, if there are no accidents, her sister's soul will sleep forever until the end of her life. However, if there is a death calamity, then her sister's soul is very likely to block a death calamity for her. Although this is very rare, it is not unheard of. In other words, her sister's soul blocked your scythe for her, and you didn't notice anything? No, I noticed, but my mission was to take away one of her souls. It didn't matter who it was. Her body had already been corroded by a zombie. No matter if I took away her soul or not, she would still die. Chun Zhao was speechless because he'd given Vanessa the demonic gene. The so-called demonic gene was actually something more basic than bloodline. Obtaining the gene meant obtaining the bloodline. Obtaining the demonic gene meant either the genetic sequence would collapse and one would die, or fuse with the demonic gene. Without a doubt, Vanessa had fused with the demonic gene. After she obtained the demonic bloodline, the zombies were obviously useless against her. He'd never seen a zombie kill a demon. The mystery of Vanessa's resurrection had been solved. However, Chun Zhao was even more curious about Vanessa's demonic bloodline. The next day, Chun Zhao went to the headquarters. He brought Vanessa out of the underground prison. Show me your demonic power. Demonic power. Are you confused? I gave you demonic power that day. I thought you would die, and your soul would fall into hell. As a demon, it'll be easier to adapt to the environment of hell than a normal person. I'm really doing this for your own good. Vanessa wanted to retort, but for the sake of her own safety, she gave up on the idea. You gave me demonic power? So you're a demon too? No, I'm a human. Chun Zhao shook his head. As for why you didn't die, it's my friend's fault. I hope you can cooperate, though. Otherwise, I'll have my friend finish his job directly. Grim Reaper. Vanessa's expression was unnatural. Is it here? Vanessa looked around. This was the artificial lake in the headquarters. There were some people walking in the distance. No one here is a normal person. Vanessa turned into a mad demon. Qin Zhao didn't feel anything. Qin Zhao thought that Vanessa's power could strengthen demons. However, he had the demonic bloodline, so he didn't feel anything from Vanessa's power. Qin Zhao looked at Vanessa, deep in thought. On the other hand, Vanessa looked at Qin Zhao nervously, even though her strength had increased tremendously after her transformation. But she knew very well that her power was nothing in front of Qin Zhao. Compared to her, this man was more like a monster in human skin. Is this your demonic form? It seems very normal, although it's a demon species I don't know. I know other forms. Oh, other forms? Show me. Then, Vanessa transformed into her dark soul form. Spirit demon? Qin Zhao was surprised. Spirit demons were a rare species. However, Qin Zhao could feel that while Vanessa's mad demon form and dark soul form were very different in appearance, they had the same origin. The two forms were actually different forms of the same demon. Are there other forms? There's one. I call this form the silver scale form, but I can only use it when I'm emotional, and this form will make me lose control of my emotions. You can only use it if you lose control of your emotions. This means that you don't have enough magic power. You need emotional stimulation to activate your potential. As he spoke, he tapped Vanessa's forehead with his finger. Vanessa immediately felt a tremendous amount of power flow into her body. Chapter 3096. Vanessa didn't need to transform at all. Her body began to be covered with silver scales, and her figure became taller and more slender. However, the scales didn't cover her completely. Only a few parts were covered. For example, her forehead, shoulders, half of her face, chest, and thighs were all covered in obvious silver scales. Sharp silver horns grew out of her forehead, and her hair became thick and long. It didn't look like hair, but more like an extension of muscle tissue. This was Vanessa's first time transforming so thoroughly. She transformed twice in the past, but they were all passive transformations. After transforming, she would only have a few characteristics. Qin Zhao was surprised too. It was another demon he didn't know. Her aura was completely different from the previous two demon forms, but it was also somewhat similar. Qin Zhao guessed that this form and the previous two forms should be related to before and after advancement. In this form, Vanessa was clearly much stronger than the mad demon and dark soul forms. Attack me. Vanessa gulped. She didn't really want to fight. More accurately, she didn't want to die. Don't worry, I won't fight back. Vanessa felt the power in her body. There were also memories that didn't belong to her that surged into her brain along with the power. These memories taught her how to use this power. There were also scenes of slaughter and death. Vanessa waved her arms. Rays of demonic power gathered into swords and shot at Jean C. This kind of power was rare, condensing power into a shape. Generally speaking, demons relied on nothing more than their powerful physique and terrifying magic power to assist them in battle. Apart from a few races that focused on pure magic, most demons practiced both combat and magic. They were also more inclined towards close combat. Very few people attacked, like Vanessa did. Vanessa's attack was very sharp. When she shot her sword at Qin Zhao, dozens of swords had already formed around her. Of course, this kind of attack was useless against Qin Zhao. Qin Zhao waved his hand, and Vanessa took a few steps back. Are there any other attacks? Vanessa nodded. She did the same thing again, but this time there weren't swords around her. Instead, there were many silver-white balls. Qin Zhao allowed the balls to hit him. The physical damage wasn't bad. They also had strong corrosive power. The balls also seemed to have a shock effect. If it had been someone else, they would have been sent flying by the silvery white ball, or even shattered into pieces. What were the characteristics of these silvery white spheres? It was as if Vanessa had used her power to create it. It was too strange. Qin Zhao had never seen a demon with this special power before. If it weren't for the demonic aura on her, Qin Zhao would even suspect that Vanessa was a demon. Then Chen Zhao had Vanessa use a few of her racial abilities. It was an eye-opener for Chen Zhao. It was not how strong she was. It was just that the characteristics of the magic she used were different from most of the demons. Chen Zhao kept Vanessa, planning to continue his research on her. Because of his curiosity, Vanessa wasn't sent back to the glass prison in the basement. At this moment, an unfamiliar car arrived outside the headquarters. It was Zhang Tianyi who got off the car. Chen Zhao didn't expect Zhang Tianyi to come to the headquarters. Chen Zhao walked to the door. "Old Zhang, why are you here?" "I'm here to see your supernatural organization." Zhang Tianyi glanced around. "I have an invitation." "What invitation?" "The International Supernatural Competition." Are you sure it's for me?" Chen Zhao remembered that Zhang Tianyi had rejected him during the Battle of Holy Glory. Zhang Tianyi shook his head. It definitely wasn't for Chen Zhao. What a joke. If someone at his level participated, the organizers wouldn't even need to host it. They could just give the trophy to Chen Zhao. There would be no accidents. Even if Zhang Tianyi, Baifla, and 23rd Blood Mary worked together, they wouldn't be able to stop Chen Zhao from winning. If it was a life-and-death battle, they still had ways to restrict Chen Zhao. But how would they restrict him in the arena? Would they use the seal to seal Chen Zhao? In terms of pure combat ability, Chen Zhao could crush everyone else. "No, I'm going to be the judge." Chen Zhao rolled his eyes. "Are you kidding me? What kind of competition needs me to be the judge? The highest level. Apart from people like you and me, there are basically no other restrictions." Chen Zhao shook his head. "I'll pass. I'm not interested." "Don't. I'm only looking for you because I don't have enough people." "Dragon Tiger Mountain is the organizer?" "No, just my influence isn't enough. It's jointly organized by the 6 recognized organizations in the world," Zhang Tianyi said. "Dragon Tiger Mountain, Cross Sect, Scarlet Church, Wutai Mountain, Kunlun, and Japanese Inyang Sect. Because it's the highest level competition, it's hard to judge even for people at the same level as the contestants. That's why the lowest standard for a judge is Shangqing. Even fire worship isn't one of the 6. In terms of scale, fire worship isn't weaker than any other sect, but its influence in the world is still a bit lacking. How many judges are there now? Me, Blood Mary, John Baifla, Spiritual Master Wushu, Spiritual Master Qingping, and an old shaman wizard you don't know. That's 7 people. It's enough to maintain world peace. What else do you need me for?" Chen Zhao said, rolling his eyes. Chen Zhao knew 6 of the 7. He'd only met old John a few times and wasn't familiar with him. But in terms of strength, he was definitely strong. There was also the old shaman wizard. Chen Zhao hadn't seen him before, but Zhang Tianyi could put him together with the others. He was definitely at the same level as them. "Do you know how many people are participating in the World Supernatural Competition?" "No." "How many?" "More than 2,000 from the other 4 continents." 2,000? Didn't you say it's the highest level competition? How come there are still 2,000? Do you know how many cultivators there are in the world? More than 14 million. It's not too much to pick 2,000 experts out of 14 million, right? That many? Actually, there are some people on the fringe of the spiritual world who know about its existence. They're also considered spiritualists. I think there are more than 10 million. For continents, there are no Americans among the 2,000? If you're willing, you can decide the number of Americans. I'm Chinese, not American. Anyway, you're doing well in America, and you're strong. Is there any benefit? Zhang Tianyi was speechless. You don't want your subordinates to participate? Chapter 3097. Do you think they're sold on the streets? Do you think they're sold at roadside stalls? Actually, Chen Zhao knew that his people were quite strong. They were qualified enough to participate in the competition, but they were still a bit lacking if they wanted to get a good ranking. They might be able to do whatever they wanted in North America. But they had to compete with the top cultivators in the world. They didn't have dominating power. Also, in such a large group, they had to be strong enough to stand out. This was exactly what they didn't have. Participation prizes and consolation prizes didn't mean much to the supernatural organization. They could have as many of them as they wanted. You're one of the top, after all. You should at least have some responsibility. My cultivation base wasn't nurtured by anyone. If you want to say that my cultivation base was nurtured by the resources of various factions in the spirit world, then I'm more than happy to contribute. But the problem is that I've never benefited from anyone. So, is there a problem with me wanting something good? In addition to the showdown between the most outstanding cultivators, after the competition is over, we, the peerless experts, will also have a showdown. This showdown will determine who will be the number one figure in the otherworldly spirit plane for some time to come. Don't you want that title? Qin Zhao glanced at Zhang Tianyi with dead fish eyes. No, not interested at all. Top in the world. So many people can't even dream of it. To be honest, I know I'm the top even without competing. Zhang Tianyi was speechless. He could only attract Chen Zhao with fame. But Chen Zhao didn't care about fame. This was also the most troublesome point. Chen Zhao had both power and money. So, the conditions that were used to attract normal, strong cultivators didn't appeal to Chen Zhao at all. Didn't you invite me to challenge Zeus? I can get 10% less, but you can have the 10%. No sincerity, 50%. Fuck, piss off. I'll work for you for free. Do you want it? At least 20%. I'm just asking you to be a temporary judge. I'm challenging the Divine King with you. Challenging the Divine King has its expected benefits, but I don't feel any benefits from being a judge. Fine, 20%. Zhang Tianyi gritted his teeth and looked at Chen Zhao. Chen Zhao's expression froze. Oh, you dragged me to that bullshit referee this time. Don't tell me there's some trouble again. I feel that your invitation this time is very similar to the last time you asked me to return to China. I just wanted to go back to China for the new year, but you found me a 2,000-year-old monster. Could it be a monster that popped out of nowhere this time? Do you really think this world is filled with monsters? I do think so. Anyway, I've seen and killed many of them. I can't even count the number of monsters above the Shangqing realm that I've encountered in the past 2 years. Hearing that, Zhang Tianyi couldn't help but glance at Qin Zhao. It was not without reason that Chen Zhao was the first to break through to ascendance. These veteran, peerless experts might not even be able to fight once a year. He might not even meet an enemy worthy of going all out in 10 years. But in a year or two, Qin Zhao had encountered many strong cultivators. Tempering oneself in battle allowed one to improve faster than any other kind of cultivation. Through the accumulation of battle after battle, he constantly used his own strength to confirm his own path, and the enemy's path to confirm his own path. It would be strange if he didn't grow quickly with this method. He also wanted to fight like Chen Zhao, but when he reached the Shangqing realm, he was already more than 100 years old. He couldn't compare to Qin Zhao. His mind and body were both at the peak of his life, and he was an enhancer. If he was an ordinary enhancer, he would age more easily when he was old. His body would age more easily than normal people, and the illnesses of his youth would follow. But Chen Zhao was different. At Chen Zhao's level, his body had been reborn many times. His body had long reached the invincible Vajra level. Time couldn't corrode his body. The accumulation of time would only make him stronger. Even after 200 or 300 years, when his lifespan came to an end, his body probably wouldn't decay. This was the scariest thing. He had enough time and ability to adjust his body state. At Zhang Tianyi's current age, even if he spent another 20 or 30 years adjusting his body state, he probably wouldn't have much time left. But Chen Zhao had enough time. No, his greatest advantage was that he had reached this level at a young age. He knew the mysteries of the human body better than others. he could continue to grow stronger in his lifetime. This was also an advantage that Zhang Tianyi and the other top experts of the older generation couldn't reach. Especially in this era, for others, there were good and bad times during the spiritual qi tide. But for Chen Zhao, it was the best era. During the period of spiritual energy exhaustion, he would be able to reach the pinnacle. And in the era of the spiritual qi tide, his strength definitely wouldn't stay the same. When will the competition be held? Where is it? Baikou Islands in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. It starts in late June. A deserted island? No, it's a private island. It's very large and has very complete facilities. Is there a place for a yacht to dock? Are you sure you want to take a yacht there? Why? Is there a problem? There are many submerged reefs around the Baikou Islands. Big ships can't pass through. Then how do we go? By plane? Is there an airport there? There's a small airport. It's the private airport of the island's owner. But I still don't recommend you to take a plane. Why? Except for logistics personnel, all cultivators are required to enter the Baikou Islands with their own strength. This is an unspoken rule. If you can't even enter the Baikou Islands with your own strength, then you're not qualified to participate in the competition. As a referee, you also need to have enough strength to convince the public. I don't care if other people are convinced or not. Anyway, I know that I have the strength. I don't need other people's affirmation. If anyone is not convinced, I can use my own way to convince them. Forget it. Suit yourself. Zhang Tianyi was not too surprised by Chen Zhao's stubbornness. How many contestant spots did you say you would give me? There's no limit. As long as you think you can participate, you can give me a recommendation letter and a competition letter. But I personally suggest that you choose carefully. This competition is still very dangerous. There are many bloodthirsty people among the contestants. As long as you get hurt in the competition, it's allowed. If someone accidentally kills someone, they won't be held accountable. In other words, someone can kill at will in the name of the competition? That depends on the referee's strength. Chapter 3098. Boss, Navikalina said, Mr. Bingerly from Northern Gravity said that your plane has been modified. It's been tested 3 times and has a range of 2,000 kilometers. It's ready for delivery. When can you pick it up? Do I need to pick it up myself? Aren't they responsible for delivering it to my door? Of course you can, but what they mean is that they want you to visit their company. At the same time, if you find any dissatisfaction with the aircraft you ordered before delivery, you can still make corrections. However, if you deliver it, I'm afraid it will be very troublesome. Visit their company? Yes, Northern Gravity's factory is in Minnesota. Sure. Do I need to arrange a time with them? They said that you can tell them when you go. You're welcome anytime. Navika Lina basically repeated Lang's words exactly as they were. Nevertheless, it was understandable that Lang would suck up to Qin Zhao. After all, he could easily buy a plane with $1 billion in cash. Moreover, he was buying it with cash. One could imagine how terrifying his purchasing power was. There weren't many rich people like Qin Zhao in America. That was why Lang would suck up to Qin Zhao so passionately. It wasn't a one-time deal. Qin Zhao could maintain a friendship with a billionaire. If he needed planes in the future, he'd probably buy their products again. During the weekend, Qin Zhao's family, all the kids, including Zephra, Portia, and Navika Lina, went to Minnesota. When Chen Zhao's family saw the S-10, they were all dumbfounded. Even Chen Zhao was dumbfounded. The previous few times, Chen Zhao had only seen pictures or videos. He'd never seen the entire plane. It was twice as big as a regular passenger plane. The nose was like a big-headed doll, but it was streamlined and beautiful. It didn't stand out too much. According to Chen Zhao's request, a huge family photo had been painted on it. After entering the plane, the interior was divided into 2 levels. The entire plane was decorated with solid wood. The dining room, kitchen, bedroom, bathroom, and washroom were all basic facilities. There was also an entertainment area, such as a bar, movie theater, game room, and even a children's room. From Chen Zhao's perspective, the interior of the plane was definitely worth its price of 300 million. The interior space was more than 3,000 square meters, allowing the designers to design the interior as they pleased. It would not be an exaggeration to say that this was a castle flying in the sky. What did 3,000 square meters mean? Currently, most of the villas were less than a third of this area. Bingo Lang personally acted as the tour guide, introducing the various functions of the plane. Mr. Chin, that's basically all the functions of this big guy. Now, let's talk about its shortcomings. First, the fuel consumption. The S-10's fuel consumption per hour is as high as 8 tons, and this is under the current support of the new technology. If it were 10 years ago, the fuel consumption would reach 20 tons per hour. This is because the S-10 is too big. Secondly, the speed. Most commercial flights go at 800 kilometers per hour, but the S-10's normal speed is only 600 kilometers per hour. What about the voyage? Seeing that Chen Zhao didn't question the speed and fuel consumption, Bingreli Lang relaxed a little. Then he added, "Don't worry about the range. The best thing about the S-10 is its silence and range. Its maximum range can reach up to 30,000 kilometers, but it carries 400 tons of fuel, which will increase the fuel consumption. With a maximum range of 30,000 kilometers, there was basically no place in the world that could not be reached. In fact, 10,000 kilometers was enough for the plane to go anywhere. At most, it would only need to refuel midway, but the 30,000 kilometer flight would not even need to refuel." Chen Zhao was very satisfied with the distance. Secondly, he liked the S-10's silence effect. On the way back, Chen Zhao's family took their first private plane. The pilot and flight attendant were assigned by Northern Gravity Company. Chen Zhao's family really enjoyed the process. It took about 7 hours to travel 3,000 kilometers in the sky. But in these 7 hours, everyone enjoyed it very much. The plane landed near the Supernatural Organization. It was a private airport that Chen Zhao had funded. The private airport wasn't finished yet, but it was more than half done. The runway and warehouse could be used. Some facilities were completed too. It was easy to take off and land 1 or 2 planes. "Chin, I heard that you're hiring private plane pilots?" Chen Zhao posted a recruitment notice on the website. He didn't expect that the first person to call him would be Fantas. "Yeah. Do you have anyone you know to introduce to me?" "What do you think of me? You? You know how to fly a plane?" "Wait. I don't want a helicopter pilot. I want a large commercial plane." "I know. I've already seen your recruitment notice. I think I can do it," Famta said. "I used to be a fighter pilot for the Air Force, with more than 2,000 hours of flight time. After I retired, I trained as a civil airliner pilot. I was a vice captain of a civil airliner for a year and a captain for half a year." Chen Zhao didn't expect Famta's personal information to be so powerful. "You don't want to be Steven's bodyguard anymore." "I need more money. I told you last time that Evan has been eating a lot lately. You also promised to help me when you're free, but I haven't seen you yet." Okay, I'll go now." Chen Zhao really forgot about Famta's request last time. When he reached Famta's house, Chen Zhao finally knew how abnormal Famtas was when he said that Evan's reaction was abnormal. Evan's body was like an adult cow. It was frighteningly huge. Weighing more than 800 kilograms, he was like a monster. The originally dark fur actually had white veins on it. "Chin, do you think Evan's condition is normal?" Famtas didn't even dare to take Evan out now. If he left the house, he would probably be beaten to death by the police like a monster. Evan was also a beast. It was hard for him to get used to this kind of indoors life. Moreover, Evan had been eating a little too much recently. What did it mean to eat 100 kilograms of meat every meal? In other words, he had to eat as much as 2 adults a day. This was a terrifying amount of food. Eating more than 1/8 of his body weight meant that he was still growing. I don't even dare to take Evan out now. Last time I took him out at night, We ran into a couple having sex in the wild. They were almost scared to death. When we left, I even called the ambulance for them. Chen Zhao was silent for a while. If it's not convenient here, you can stay at my house for now. Chapter 3099. Is there no way to solve Evan's current situation? Yes, but he's not sick. He's evolving. Are you sure you want me to interrupt his evolution? Evan was clearly affected by the change in the spiritual energy. The enormous spiritual energy didn't just affect humans. Animals would also change. Interrupting Evan's evolution was like interrupting the growth of an underage child. He would forever be a child or even become a baby again. Regardless of whether the other party was human or not, it was still cruel. If Famutus wasn't truly in love with Evan, he would have agreed without hesitation to get rid of the troublesome Evan. Evan was evolving into an unconventional creature, but she didn't lose her mind. On the contrary, she was smarter than before. Based on her previous personality, she would have been unable to hold it in after being locked in the house for so long. She would have rushed out to cause trouble. But now, even if she felt uncomfortable, she would endure it and not cause trouble for Famutus. Under Chen Zhao's touch, Evan rubbed against Chen Zhao's palm, comfortably. Then let Evan go to your place. Famutus had no other choice, unless she locked Evan up forever. Plus, she didn't know when Evan's growth would end. Now let's talk about your job. Did you talk to Stephen about it? I told you yesterday, Famutus said. What was his reaction? He scolded you and said you're a jerk for stealing his woman without saying a word. Then I'm relieved. Soon, Famutus and Chen Zhao agreed to be Chen Zhao's personal pilot. Chen Zhao gave her the highest salary in the industry. Chen Zhao only had one request for her, and that was to be on call. Chen Zhao gave Famutus such a high salary because people from the supernatural organization needed to use her occasionally. And if someone from the supernatural society was on the plane, who knew what would happen? If something supernatural happened, Famutus would at least be in contact with it. Plus, Famutus was someone he knew. Chen Zhao didn't need to worry that she would spread it around. As for the flight attendants, Chen Zhao already had an idea. In Blackie's space-time crevice, the inferior demons had to implement family planning. Therefore, the inferior demons could be the flight attendants. Plus, they didn't take up space. It could also be very discreet. Moreover, he wouldn't allow strangers to board his own plane. If not, the pilot must have a pilot's license. Chen Zhao even wanted the underlings to learn how to fly a plane. Chen Zhao's yacht would be delivered at the end of the year. Now, everyone at home was discussing whether they should take a plane or a yacht for the New Year's holiday. Of course, in terms of comfort, a yacht was far better than a plane. However, the places that the yacht could go were limited. After all, the places that it could go to were all coastal cities and scenic spots, especially with the speed of the yacht if it went too far away. The children would probably spend 2/3 of their vacation on the yacht. Handsome. Have you seen this kind of demon before? Oh, seeing the picture, the handsome guy was surprised. Oh, Chen Zhao sent him a picture. To be able to see the little handsome boy's surprise, that was the real wonder of the century. To the little handsome guy, there was almost nothing that could surprise him. But now, Chen Zhao had sent Vanessa's photo to the handsome guy. He actually showed such an expression. Are these demons very powerful? No, not powerful. They're rare, the handsome guy said. The handsome young man said, This is the ancient demon royal family. They don't have great strength, but they are born with the demon domain. However, it is different from other domains. Their demon domain can increase the strength of most demons by several times or even dozens of times. However, they have long been exterminated. The demon dynasty from 1,000,000 years ago was also destroyed. Where did you meet them? Actually, I created it. Also, the process is related to you. Related to me? The Tower of Trials? Yes, I reached the 12th floor, Chen Zhao said. Is the strengthening effect of this demon royal effective on me? No. Only demons with ancient demon bloodlines are effective. The bloodlines of gluttony and wrath in you aren't ancient demon bloodlines. Also, your power has long surpassed their limits. Chen Zhao was a bit disappointed, but wasn't this to be expected? Oh, let me show you my new ride. Chen Zhao turned the camera and aimed it at his plane. It's made of steel and has no combat ability at all. It's much weaker than Ancestral Dragon. It doesn't even have the right to be your mount. You should find a stronger creature. Chen Zhao rolled his eyes. This thing is called a plane. It can't do what Ancestral Dragon can, but it can't do what Ancestral Dragon can't do. For example, Chen Zhao walked into the cabin. For example, go to the toilet. I don't need, for example, eat. I don't need, play. The handsome guy was silent for a while. I want one too. What's the condition? How is my great lord friend doing now? Not bad. He's eating away at the territory of the secondary demon kings. A direct battle between them is about to begin. What's the outcome? He has about a 10% chance of winning. If necessary, save his life. Sure, Chen Zhao did this so that the handsome guy could take care of Sophie. Chen Zhao didn't ask the handsome guy to help him. After all, those secondary demon kings were his descendants in name. After the call with the handsome guy, Chen Zhao picked up his phone. Mr. Bingerly. Hello, Mr. Chen. Is there a problem with the plane? No, it's not the plane. No, it's the plane, but it's not the plane. Chen Zhao was getting dizzy. I need to reserve another plane with the same configuration as mine. I hope it'll be the same price. Is there a problem? No problem at all. Bingerly didn't expect that he'd be rewarded so soon after establishing a relationship with Chen Zhao. For an aircraft manufacturer, the sale of any aircraft was a big deal. Moreover, this was an order worth more than $1 billion. Bingerly Lang was grinning from ear to ear. Right now, he felt that Chen Zhao's voice was sweet and alluring. What's the earliest time you can deliver it? 4 months. No, 3 months. I don't want the plane to have any quality problems. Mr. Chen, the plane has been manufactured for a long time. The only thing we need is the interior decoration. Okay, 3 months. Chapter 30-100. Today, Chen Zhao went to pick Fei Lai up from work. At a turn, Fei Lai saw a man in black standing on the side of the road. However, as Chen Zhao drove past, Fei Lai couldn't see the man clearly. At the next intersection, Fei Lai saw the man in black pass by the car window again. Chen, is someone in the same industry looking for you? Fei Lai asked. If Fei Lai could see it, Chen Zhao could see it too. At the third intersection, Chen Zhao stopped the car. Chen Zhao rolled down the window and looked at the man standing on the side of the road. You're looking for me? Chen Zhao asked. The man stepped forward. I heard that you're one of the candidates for this year's World Supernatural Competition. You're in charge of the American region's selection. Chen Zhao didn't know how this news had spread. Anyway, Chen Zhao hadn't spread this news of his own accord. It was probably Zhang Tianyi or the organizers who spread the news. Chen Zhao nodded. If you want to participate, come find me tomorrow. With that, Chen Zhao rolled up the window. However, the window seemed to be stuck by something. Chen Zhao looked up at the man in black, dissatisfied. You should maintain your respect for me, Chen Zhao said, annoyed. You also have to maintain your respect for me, the man said in the same tone. Chen Zhao looked up. I hate people like you who have no ability but still act high and mighty. I'll say the same thing back to you, the man replied. Chen Zhao narrowed his eyes. Good. Then you're eliminated. You bang! Without any warning, the man left his spot and crashed into the wall behind him. After a few minutes, the man finally climbed up, his face full of anger. You asterisk shoal. Don't think this is over. The man looked at the surrounding people and roared. What are you looking at? Do you want to die? The man in black cursed and left. In a bar, the man in black walked in. There were a few other people in the bar, forming a table. Apart from this table, there were no other customers. There were no waiters either. Only the bearded boss was leaning against the counter. Just then, the boss looked at the man at the door. "Simmons, how is it? Did you find the candidate?" The man in black, named Simmons, looked like a jinx. Ignoring the bearded boss's question, he went straight to the table. "Simmons, it looks like your selection didn't go very smoothly. That damned selector. I can't even communicate with him. He's just a bastard." Simmons growled. "I really don't understand why the Big Six would give the right to select America to that guy. The right to select should belong to us, South America, and not the people of this land. This place is filled with a bunch of incompetent guys. Could it be that the Big Six is looking for a bunch of useless people to liven up the atmosphere of the competition? Hey, before you say that, you better not say it in front of me," the bearded boss said unhappily. "Huh." At this moment, a skinny little old man chuckled. "Kendall, Simmons wasn't talking about you. Your name is also very famous in the South American spiritual world. No one would think that you're the trash that Simmons mentioned." The boss of the bar, Kendall, looked at Simmons. The skinny little old man pushed Simmons. Simmons apologized to our dear Kendall. Simmons was a little unhappy, but he still managed to say, "Sorry, Kendall. I wasn't talking about you." The skinny little old man was very satisfied with the result of his mediation. "Simmons, tell us the situation." With Simmons's temper, he must have had a conflict with the selector, and he was most likely defeated, another companion, an abnormally hairy man, said. "I wasn't defeated, Seth. Do you want to start a war with me?" Simmons stared at Seth with a dark expression. All right, Simmons. Your attitude makes it seem like you're going to offend everyone." The skinny little old man waved his hand. "I was ambushed by that guy. After he succeeded, he said that I was eliminated. I won't let him go. Definitely not." The few of them exchanged glances. They guessed that things were definitely not as simple as Simmons said. Based on Simmons's temper, he would definitely offend the selector if he interacted with the selector. "Simmons, calm down. I don't think the Great Six will casually hand over the selection of an entire continent to a nameless person. That's the truth. That guy isn't famous at all, and he's a despicable guy." "Fame doesn't mean anything," the skinny little old man said. "Old man, do you have to go against me? I'm just stating the facts." The skinny little old man chuckled. "Don't be so angry. I don't care what your plans are. Anyway, I'll go find him again. This time I won't be so polite," Simmons said. At that moment, a gloomy woman who had been sitting at the corner of the table said, "I think you want to become a selector yourself." At that moment, the few people sitting at the table had different expressions. They all looked at Simmons. Simmons did not hide his intentions at all. "So what if I am? Are you going to stop me?" The skinny little old man laughed dryly. "Simmons, you have to remember that the selectors in the past were also the judges of the competition. There has never been a weakling in any of the selectors and judges." "Except for this one," Simmons said with certainty. "Are you that sure?" Simmons picked up the glass and downed the entire glass of beer. "I'm confident in my abilities. If any of you doubt me, I'll be happy to show you my abilities." Although the others were a little unconvinced, they did not show it on the spot. Simmons was indeed very powerful. In South America, Simmons was very famous. If he did not have enough abilities, he would have been beaten to death with his bad temper. However, they might not be afraid of Simmons. It was just that they were just there to watch the show. There was an unwritten rule in the World Supernatural competition. If the selector was defeated, then the challenger could replace him. This had only happened once, and that was during the first World Supernatural competition. From then on, the selectors and judges would be powerful enough to be recognized by the world. However, there had never been a selector from the American region in the past. If the spiritualists from the American region wanted to participate, they had to go to other continents to find selectors from other continents. However, it was different this time. They all felt that the selectors from the American region were just there to make up the numbers. Chapter 3101. Fei Lai vaguely felt that Qin Zhao seemed to have moved. Narrowing her eyes, she reached for her phone by the window to check the time. However, Fei Lai's hand was stopped by Qin Zhao. "It's still early," Qin Zhao said softly. "Go back to sleep. I'll go downstairs and find something to eat." "Okay. Don't eat too much tonight," Fei Lai whispered. Although Qin Zhao wouldn't get fat, Fei Lai still reminded him out of habit. Qin Zhao stood at the door of the manor and looked at the uninvited guest. "Are you sure you're not here to die?" Qin Zhao looked at Simmons with a dark expression. "Looking for me at this time? Are you sure you're not looking for death?" Qin Zhao stared at Simmons with a dark expression, especially when the guy had come to his door. "You're the one who wants to die. Do you think you can talk to me like this just because the Big Six gave you power?" Simmons stared at Qin Zhao coldly. His gaze was like that of a poisonous snake, making Qin Zhao very uncomfortable. Qin Zhao looked around. "You brought helpers? Come out. There's no point in hiding." Just then, a few people walked out from the darkness. It was the people from the bar. The skinny old man walked out with a chuckle. "Sir, we're not with him." Simmons glanced at the old man. "Aren't you here to take advantage?" "Yes, I'm here to take advantage," Seth yelled. Only Kendall waved his hand. I'm not. Kendall looked at Qin Zhao with some fear. He had been in the South American spiritual world for a long time, but in the past 2 years he had returned to LA and opened that bar. He knew some things about LA. No matter who came here, they had to be careful. From what he knew, a few people who were more famous and powerful than him had come to LA and caused trouble. Then there was no then. They hadn't been here for more than 24 hours. Another theory was that LA was ruled by an Asian. Kendall had come with some ideas, but after seeing Qin Zhao, he suddenly lost them. Standing next to Kendall, the woman who was enveloped in a cold aura said, "I'm here to take the test. I don't care which one of you becomes a candidate, but don't get in the way of me participating in the World Supernatural Contest." Qin Zhao glanced at the two. He didn't care what they said. "Then who's first?" Simmons stepped forward. "You ambushed me during the day. You won't have a chance this time." Simmons attacked first. He condensed a beam of purple light in his palms and pointed at Qin Zhao. "Listen to my command. You won't be able to breathe for 10 minutes. Everyone was shocked. Simmons had actually used an ultimate move on Qin Zhao. Simmons' magic system was very special and advanced. It was even close to the laws. Of course, it wasn't a law. In the words of the trade, his magic system was a decree. It was similar to the laws of nature and could not be exempted. He could give orders to everything, even his enemies. However, it took a lot of magic power to apply the decree on the enemy. They didn't expect Simmons to give such an order right from the start. However, that was not the end. Simmons used the same trick again. "Listen to my command. You won't be able to absorb magic power for 10 minutes. Everyone was shocked again. Simmons was risking his life. The second decree was even more extreme than the first. He couldn't breathe or recover his magic power. Such an advanced decree not only crushed the opponent, but also challenged his upper limit of magic power. Suddenly, a glint flashed across the skinny old man's eyes. He saw that Simmons was wearing a ring on his finger. It was the dragon blood crystal ring that had appeared on the market a while ago. He'd heard about it too, but he could only look at it and sigh. It was too expensive. He might not be able to afford a ring like that, even if he worked hard for a few years. Simmons actually had a dragon blood crystal ring. How did he afford it? No. A rich spiritualist had been attacked and lost his life. It was done by this guy. He had long known that Simmons was ruthless and often did things like killing people and robbing them. However, Simmons was always very clean when he made his move, and he almost didn't leave any traces. Plus, he was very powerful, so very few people would investigate. While everyone was still in shock, Simmons cast a third decree spell. Listen to my command. You won't be able to dodge offensive spells for 1 minute. Everyone was shocked again. How dare you give such a decree? Are you crazy? Simmons cast 3 decree spells on Qin Zhao in a row. Only then did he smile victoriously. Just then, Simmons raised his arms. Listen to my command. I want all the spiritual qi within 1 kilometer to be controlled by me. Even the skinny old man's expression changed. Lunatic, this guy is a lunatic. How dare? How dare? Kendall's face was filled with disbelief. The skinny little old man's expression changed indeterminately. He didn't think much of Simmons at first. However, he had no choice but to treat Simmons with caution after witnessing the true strength that he had displayed. Simmons condensed a huge ball of spiritual qi in his palms. The spiritual qi was more than 10 meters in diameter and emitted a terrifying aura. Everyone took a few steps back unconsciously. They didn't want to be affected by such a super bomb. There was no chance of survival if they were hit by it. Even steel would be obliterated in an instant. Kendall looked at Chen Zhao. This should be a hopeless situation, right? How come his expression didn't change at all? He couldn't breathe, absorb magic, or dodge attacks. Then he faced an attack that was close to despair. A normal person should be terrified or angry, right? Did he have facial paralysis? Or wasn't he awake at all? I like your desperate face. It'll be perfect if you can scream a few more times. Ah! I'm so scared! Just then, a girl's voice sounded from behind. Everyone saw a few kids appear behind Qin Zhao. However, the children didn't show any signs of fear. Instead, they looked excited. It's not game time now. Go to sleep. Qin Zhao glared at Didi. Didi, did you wake them up? I know you played games until midnight again. Uncle, they were too noisy and woke us up. DDRA directly pushed all the blame to Simmons and the others. Yes, we were awakened by them. A bunch of bastards. Die all of you, Simmons said ferociously. Chapter 3102. The grass on the grave of the last person who dared to talk to us like that is more than a meter tall now. Didira sneered at Simmons. Simmons didn't waste time talking to the kids. He threw the ball formed by the spiritual qi at Qin Zhao. He believed that with the power of this energy ball, not just Qin Zhao, the kids behind Qin Zhao and the manor behind him would all be turned into ashes. Qin Zhao suddenly raised his hand. The energy ball rapidly shrank before him. Everyone widened their eyes in disbelief. What was going on? Magic? The energy ball didn't weaken because it shrank. Instead, the more it was compressed, the more powerful it was. When it shrank to the size of a ping-pong ball, the energy ball had turned completely black. Everyone's expression changed. The black ball seemed to be real in Qin Zhao's hand. He played with it lightly. Only this much? This isn't enough to kill me. Everyone's scalps were about to explode. What was going on with this guy? He compressed such a huge energy ball into such a small one? How could he do that? Of course, Simmons was the most pitiful. A moment ago, he was so arrogant. He felt like he was the best in the world. Simmons turned around to escape. But the next moment, he realized that he couldn't move his body. More accurately, he couldn't move his legs. His upper body could move, but his lower body couldn't. Since you can't let me dodge, I'll make it so that you can't dodge too. You attacked me, so I'll attack you too. Qin Zhao opened his palm. The black ball floated up and started spinning rapidly. Everyone could feel that the surrounding air was quickly flowing toward Qin Zhao. The wind was so strong that they couldn't even stand properly. The black ball didn't grow bigger, but everyone knew that it was growing in a way that made their scalps go numb. Finally, the wind stopped. Qin Zhao walked toward Simmons step by step. What are you doing? I admit defeat. I won't participate in the world supernatural competition. Qin Zhao grabbed Simmons' chin and stuffed the black ball into his mouth. Under normal circumstances, with the black ball's mass, Simmons would be compressed into pieces the moment it entered his mouth. However, Chen Zhao used energy to cover the black ball with a layer of shell. Therefore, Simmons was not dead yet. Chen Zhao suddenly lifted Simmons and tossed him into the air. Simmons disappeared from everyone's sight at an astonishing speed. Even Seth, who had the best eyesight, lost track of Simmons in a second. He only knew that Simmons was flying very high, and it was very, very fast. After about 10 seconds, a sudden clap of thunder came from the sky, and at the same time, a faint white halo appeared. If it was daytime, it would be almost impossible to see the white circle clearly. It was only at night that everyone could see clearly. Simmons is dead? Everyone was a little dazed. The insufferably arrogant Simmons died. Just like that? Maybe. Chen Zhao shrugged. I threw him a few 100,000 meters into the ozone layer. He's already turned into space dust. If he can be reborn at that level, I'll give him a spot in the competition. That's right. Everyone was rolling their eyes. They finally understood what was going on. Why did the Sixth Assembly give him the right to choose? Even now, they still felt like they were in a dream. When did such a monster appear in North America? Okay, it's your turn. Take advantage of the situation. Chen Zhao looked at the skinny old man and Seth. The two glanced at each other. They both regretted their previous decision. No, it wasn't just regret. They regretted it so much that their intestines turned green. Sir, we admit defeat. No, there's no option to admit defeat. Since you're here to take advantage of the situation, it means that you're prepared. Sir, can I take one move? The skinny old man asked Chen Zhao. You're confident you can take one move? I'm confident I won't die. Chen Zhao realized that there wasn't much fear in the skinny old man's eyes. Suddenly, Chen Zhao felt that there was something wrong with the skinny old man. The next moment, Chen Zhao suddenly grabbed the old man. The skinny little old man began to scream in agony, but Chen Zhao covered his mouth. The old man struggled even more violently. This went on for more than a minute. Then, Chen Zhao casually threw the old man onto the ground. The skinny old man panted heavily. He dared to ask to take one move from Chen Zhao so confidently. It was because this wasn't his real body. There was only a bit of his soul in this old man's body. So, there was no point in killing him. Chen Zhao only gave the soul fragment a bit of a hard blow. It was his punishment. The soul fragment and the main soul were connected. Their senses were also connected. Therefore, the pain that this physical body felt was also felt by the main body of the soul. It wouldn't be difficult to kill him. Just hold this soul fragment and let him torment it for 3 to 5 days. Even if it was the main soul, it would be destroyed. Or, if you took the soul fragment, it wouldn't be hard to trace it back to the source. Most importantly, Chen Zhao didn't have the time to waste with him. If his real body was here, Chen Zhao would kill him with one slap. If it was a strenuous and thankless task, Chen Zhao would just give him a small punishment. The skinny old man couldn't say anything. He knew that Chen Zhao had seen through him, but since he wasn't dead, it could only mean that Chen Zhao didn't want to kill him. Suddenly, a black shadow came over and grabbed at Chen Zhao. Chen Zhao raised a hand and grabbed the jaw that was coming at him. The black shadow was Seth. At the moment, he'd turned into a fierce bear. Druid? No, he didn't have any natural aura. Fuck, this guy is a foreign monster. It's a bear demon. Chen Zhao closed Seth's bloody mouth and twisted with one hand. Seth's neck was twisted 180 degrees. As soon as Chen Zhao let go, Seth climbed up and pounced at Chen Zhao. But in the next instant, an even larger bear rushed out of the darkness. She bit Seth's neck, and then there was a cracking sound. Seth was completely dead. Chen Zhao grinned. Princess seemed to have grown a lot bigger. The bear demon was big enough, but it was still half of Princess's size. The princess rushed out and bit Seth to death, scaring the crowd to no end. Only Chen Zhao watched coldly. Princess glanced at Qin Zhao, and Qin Zhao gave her a look. Then Princess tore into the bear demon's corpse. This was the truth. Another big guy had appeared. Qin Zhao had many foodies in his family, but only Raymond could compete with Princess. Chapter 3103. The three of you have passed. Qin Zhao looked at the skinny old man, Kendall, and the cold woman. The skinny old man had mixed feelings. It was fine if he passed. Why did Kendall and Quinn, who didn't do anything, also pass? Just because they didn't do anything? Was that why they passed? Oh, before the start of the World Supernatural Tournament, if any Tom, Dick, or Harry tries to get a spot in the tournament, the three of you will replace them. If you are replaced, I will kill you. The three of them were helpless too. Even Quinn. Quinn appeared cold and arrogant, but this kind of arrogance depended on the person. If the person was Qin Zhao, she felt that Qin Zhao would kill her as soon as she opened her mouth. But she also felt wronged. I'm not here to cause trouble. I'm here to participate in the selection seriously. Unfortunately, Qin Zhao didn't look like someone who could be reasoned with. The most pitiful one had already been launched into space and turned into space dust. The other one wasn't much worse. A group of ferocious beasts came out of nowhere and devoured Seth. The adults, children, and pets of the family were all fiercer than the other. Quinn didn't doubt that if she said anything unpleasant, she would be beheaded. But she had no choice. She could either surrender or die. She chose to surrender. There was nothing embarrassing about surrendering to a strong person. At least, that was what she told herself. Plus, she wasn't the only one who was embarrassed. There were two other people who were in the same boat. Kendall only felt a wave of relief. She'd gotten her life back. Motherfucker. Sure enough, there might be a reason for it. LA was really dangerous. Luckily, she didn't do anything wrong in LA. Even 100 of her wouldn't be able to beat this guy. Kendall felt that she'd made a huge profit. As for helping Qin Zhao select the other contestants, as far as he was concerned, it was a great honor. Yes, completely different from the other two. From Kendall's point of view, this was an honor. This meant that Qin Zhao recognized their strength. Force? There was no such thing as force. Was there a need to force someone so strong? They were completely willing. Furthermore, send those challengers back to where they came from. This would reduce the pressure on them. As for the skinny little old man, he was filled with regret. Although he managed to survive, but it wasn't a good thing to offend Qin Zhao. It would be fine if Qin Zhao was just a regular spiritualist. However, his strength was astonishing. Anyone who could send someone to outer space by hand was definitely not a good person. Furthermore, he was able to get the right to be selected. This meant that his background was not as simple as they had found out. Looking for me? The right to participate in the World Supernatural Tournament? Oh, you've got the wrong person. The three at the back are in charge of the selection. The three of them skillfully stepped forward. The newcomer's strength wasn't bad, but that was all. There was a huge gap between him and any one of the three of them. However, the three of them were already used to it. Over the past few days, they had helped Qin Zhao receive 7 or 8 people who had come to get a spot. The three of them, basically, took turns to attack. Among them, the skinny old man was the most proactive. He felt that he had to make up for his mistake. He didn't want Qin Zhao to change his impression of him. At the very least, he had to make sure that Qin Zhao wouldn't hate him anymore. It was not a good thing to be hated by such an expert. The challengers were basically all spiritualists from South America. There were spiritualists from North America, but there were very few of them. Qin Zhao had only met one so far, and it was rather weak. 10 minutes passed. This time, it was Kendall who sent the challenger away. Only then did Qin Zhao call the three over. We'll leave tomorrow at noon and head to the World Supernatural Tournament's venue, the Baiku Islands. Gather at my house before noon. I won't wait for you after that. At noon the next day, the three of them arrived at the scene early. Chen Zhao tossed a car key to the three. Go to the garage and drive 2 cars. Follow mine. The three followed Chen Zhao to the supernatural organization. Helith and Elite were among the members of the supernatural organization this time. The others either felt that they weren't strong enough or didn't have much confidence. When Chen Zhao arrived at the headquarters, the two had already prepared their luggage. The group followed Chen Zhao to the airport. This was the first flight of Chen Zhao's private plane. Last times couldn't even be considered a first flight. Chen Zhao ran to the cockpit. Phantus operated the plane skillfully by himself. Do you need my help? Please don't, Phantus objected immediately. Do you want to crash on your first flight with a layman's help? Don't movies say that this kind of big plane needs 2 people to operate? In a normal civil aircraft, 2 people are arranged to ensure that if the captain encounters some special circumstances, such as a sudden illness, the second or third pilot can fill in time. 2 people operating the aircraft is also to ensure that the braking will not be affected by a single pilot, so there are no technical difficulties. This aircraft of yours is basically the most advanced aircraft of this era. You can choose to operate it with 2 people. But of course, you can also choose to operate it alone. Phantus glanced at Chen Zhao. One more thing. Apart from the flight attendants, it's against the rules to enter the cockpit, even if you're the owner of the plane. Okay. Chuckling, Chen Zhao left the cockpit. Oh, do you want something to eat or drink? I'll have our flight attendants bring it in. Phantus had already seen their flight attendants. They were a bunch of dwarf weirdos. At first, she was indeed a bit scared, but after interacting with them, she realized that they weren't that big of a deal. These short monsters looked scary, but they actually didn't have any combat power. At least, she could probably kill a bunch of them by herself. Also, these monsters were very studious. They were also very passionate about flying planes. However, when they realized that they couldn't even move the lever, they were all disappointed. Kendall, Quinn, and the skinny old man were a bit reserved at first, but after chatting with Hele Eyes and an Elite, they relaxed a lot. They knew that Hele Eyes and an Elite were Chen Zhao's direct subordinates. They were also participating in the competition. No matter how strong they were Chen Zhao's confidants. Just this was enough for them to be careful. Especially when Chen Zhao wasn't around, they were even more relaxed. Hele Eyes' personality was similar to Quinn's. They were both cold and arrogant. When they were together, they had a lot to talk about. An Elite was even better. After all, he wasn't an insurance salesman anymore. But every time a new person entered the association, he couldn't help but persuade them to buy insurance. Chapter 3104. Speaking of which, you're not the first to cause trouble for our president. An Elite, the skinny old man, and Kendall gathered together. The 3 of them sat on the sofa in the open attic, drinking beer and chatting. But you're lucky. After all, not many of those who caused trouble for our president are still alive. Kendall and the skinny old man knew this very well. But Kendall quickly waved his hands. I'm not. I'm just going the same way as him. You don't have to deny it in a hurry. Since the president didn't kill you on the spot, he won't bother with you anymore. An Elite was one of the earliest people to follow Chen Zhao, so he knew Chen Zhao quite well. Plus, his age and social experience gave him quite a bit of authority in the supernatural organization. Even Chen Zhao valued Angelite's opinion a lot. An Elite seemed to be as unreliable as Chen Zhao. He would grab someone and ask if they needed insurance. Actually, he was one of the few people in the organization who could see the big picture. As the team leader, Angelite's team didn't complete the most missions, but it was the only team with a 100% completion rate. The other teams would more or less fail a few times. An Elite also had a more delicate heart than Jalanash and Hallie's. He wasn't a smart person, but he could take care of everything. Every time he did a mission, he would consider all the factors. He would always choose the safest way to complete the mission. He would never resort to shortcuts. Just then, an inferior demon ran over. "Mr. Unelite, do you need more alcohol?" "No, make me a cup of tea." An elite didn't want to drink too much. They were on a plane. An elite was the kind of person who was extremely rational. He wouldn't lose his mind under any circumstances. Just then, Fantis suddenly ran out of the cockpit. "Where's Chin?" Fantis asked anxiously. "In the bedroom." An elite stood up. "What happened?" The radar detected unidentified flying objects ahead. A lot. Just then, Chen Zhao walked down from upstairs. Fantis's voice wasn't soft. He'd already heard her. "Fantis, what's going on?" Fantis repeated the story again. "Unidentified flying objects? UFO? Or a flock of birds? Or a plane or something? It might be a flock of birds, but there are a lot of them. Can't we go around it? Those things are hovering above our destination." "There's no way to avoid them," Fantis said. "Mr. Chin, it should be the 100-volt Islands test," the skinny old man said. "What test? Isn't it disgusting?" Chen Zhao turned to the skinny old man. "Generally speaking, almost all people who go to the 100-volt Islands have to rely on their own ability to go in, unless they are logistics personnel. If a psychic goes in by means of transportation, whether it is a plane or a ship, they will be tested or attacked." "How far are we from our destination?" "About a few 100 kilometers," Fantis said. Chin Zhao picked up the phone. "Old Zhang, I'm almost at the Baiku Islands." "Oh," Zhang Tianyi simply replied. "I recently bought a plane." "Oh," Zhang Tianyi's tone was still the same. "I heard that there will be a super tsunami in the Baiku Islands today." "What?" "Chin Zhao, what are you doing?" Zhang Tianyi suddenly yelled, like someone who had just woken up from a dream. "If my new plane crashes, I can guarantee that the 100-volt Islands will definitely sink into the Pacific Ocean." "Fuck, is it hard for you to get rid of those flying things?" "Then how embarrassing would it be for me to sink the 100-volt Islands just like that?" "Fuck!" Zhang Tianyi cursed. A few minutes later, Fantis replied, "Those UFOs are already gone." Fantis continued piloting her plane. The skinny old man looked at Chen Zhao. "Mr. Chin, who did you call just now? You solved the problem so quickly." "Someone important," Chen Zhao answered casually. The skinny old man was a bit suspicious. After all, Chen Zhao's tone didn't seem like he was calling someone important. It seemed more like he was threatening them. The journey was basically smooth. Only at the end of the journey did a group of UFOs appear, but they were quickly dealt with. Fantis piloted the plane steadily. It took off steadily and landed steadily. One had to admit that this was the most stable plane Chen Zhao had ever taken. Although there were still bumps during takeoff and landing, it wasn't as violent as other commercial planes. The central island of the 100-volt Islands was the largest and the main competition venue. There were hundreds of islands of various sizes around it. There were almost all kinds of facilities on the island. It was almost a vacation spot. Even when there weren't any competitions, it was still very lively. However, it wasn't just for ordinary tourists. Only spiritualists or people on the fringe of the spiritual world could be treated here. Thus, magic was very popular in the 100-volt Islands. The magic shops here weren't hidden at all. It was also the only place where you could use magic in public. Of course, it wasn't a fight. It was illegal to fight in public in the 100-volt Islands. In fact, it was illegal all over the world. If there were no personal grudges, they wouldn't interfere. If there was nothing, they could go to the arena to solve it. Anyway, fighting wasn't right. Chen Zhao got off the plane and looked at the empty airport. There wouldn't be any flights here during the competition. Just then, someone came from the distance. It was Zhang Tianyi. Chen Zhao walked up with a smile. But before Zhang Tianyi could reach Chen Zhao, he suddenly cast a spell. Law of the Three Pure Ones. Tao of Nature, destroy evil. A beam of golden light hit Chen Zhao. Everyone else was terrified. Wasn't that Celestial Master Zhang? Why did he attack Qin Zhao as soon as he saw him? Did they have a grudge against each other? Everyone felt cold as they stared at Qin Zhao and Zhang Tianyi in fear. They wouldn't start fighting in public, would they? Plus, if they really did fight here, Zhang Tianyi would definitely be fine. No one in the world would dare to catch him. But Qin Zhao might not. They might even be dragged into this as well. By then, he wouldn't be able to participate in the competition. He might even have to go to jail. But Qin Zhao still smiled and took Zhang Tianyi's spell. Are you angry now? What? I'm full of anger. Zhang Tianyi pointed at Qin Zhao and cursed. You're the only one who wants the dignity of the strong? Don't the organizers want it? Is it fun to embarrass us like this? The point is you invited me here. Chapter 3105. Qin Zhao patted the mark on his chest, still smiling. Zhang Tianyi pointed at Qin Zhao. I want to hit you. Qin Zhao glanced at Yanghua, who was beside Zhang Tianyi. Suddenly, Qin Zhao pulled Yanghua in front of him and kicked him away. You traitor! How dare you appear before me? Did you forget that I'm a dog? If you appear before me again, I'll break your legs. Yanghua clutched his stomach, dumbfounded. Speaking of which, you can fight with my grandmaster. Do you have to hurt the innocent? Isn't the past already settled? Seeing Qin Zhao attack his disciple, Zhang Tianyi immediately looked at the people who'd come with Qin Zhao. In the end, he saw the skinny old man immediately. He also grabbed the air. The skinny old man was uncontrollably caught in Qin Zhao's palm. He basically didn't know all of Qin Zhao's subordinates. The only one he was familiar with was West. However, West wasn't here this time, so Qin Zhao picked the one he didn't like the most. Slap, slap. Zhang Tianyi slapped the skinny old man twice. You don't look like a good person. Tell me, what bad things have you done? Qin Zhao looked back and was immediately enraged. You dare to hit my people? With that, Qin Zhao charged at Yanghua. Yanghua was very upset. He could only cover his head and curl up into a ball. Grandmaster, you should at least help me out of this predicament first. Why aren't you helping me at all? You're thinking about revenge first. Qin Zhao gave Yanghua a series of punches. Zhang Tianyi didn't go easy either. He hit the skinny old man a few times. Try hitting him again. Qin Zhao mentioned Yanghua. Yangua's head was almost swollen from Qin Zhao's beating. Let go of my disciple. Otherwise, I won't go easy on you. Let go of him first. Otherwise, I won't go easy on him. Yanghua and the skinny old man were both very upset. You guys aren't going to go easy on each other. Don't just say it, okay? Why are you taking it out on me? The skinny old man was even more upset. What did this have to do with me? Why did you hit me? That's enough. You two are at the top. Do you have to bully a kid? 23rd Blood Mary's voice came from behind Qin Zhao. Hi, 23rd generation. Qin Zhao let go of Yanghua and greeted him warmly. At this moment, the 23rd generation was about 10 years old. However, she was floating in midair. Bader was with Xi. He nodded at Qin Zhao in greeting. Zhang Tianyi also threw the skinny old man away. The skinny old man covered his face, looking aggrieved. Just because you are the #1 person in the world, you can bully others like this? All right, you can. I'm a magnanimous person, and I won't hold it against you. It's all this *Shoal's fault, Zhang Tianyi said unhappily, pointing at Qin Zhao. What happened to him? Yeah, what's wrong with me? I've only just landed, and you're already criticizing me. Do you not welcome me? I'm not welcome to leave now. When he was in the sky, he said that if I don't put away the star array, he will sink the 100-vault islands. This bastard will definitely do such a thing. Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. The skinny old man, Kendall, and Quinn all stared at Qin Zhao in shock. They didn't expect Qin Zhao to have such powerful connections. He could actually argue with Zhang Tianyi. Qin Zhao looked back at Annelite and Hallie's. You guys find a hotel. I'm going to talk to old Zhang." Just then, the skinny old man, Kendall, and Quinn walked over. "Mr. Qin, we're leaving too." "Goodbye," Qin Zhao said with a smile. At the same time, he glanced at the skinny old man. "He's not your subordinate?" Zhang Tianyi asked, pointing at the skinny old man. "No, he's also a contestant. I just dropped him off on the way." Zhang Tianyi looked at the skinny old man and then at Qin Zhao. "Why didn't you say so earlier?" "Say what?" The skinny old man looked aggrieved. Yang Guo felt even more aggrieved. "Which means I got beaten up for nothing? Then why didn't you say so?" Zhang Tianyi looked at the skinny old man again. The skinny old man felt even more aggrieved. "Can't you give me a chance to explain?" Of course, there were some things that he didn't dare to say, especially not in front of Chen Zhao. Would he dare to say that he had nothing to do with that man? Wouldn't that be suicidal? Chen Zhao rolled his eyes at Zhang Tianyi. "How fake? You beat him up and still want to deny it? Isn't it obvious?" The skinny old man didn't say anything because he was afraid of the two of them. He couldn't afford to offend either of them. Although he got beaten up for nothing, it might not be a bad thing for him. Zhang Tianyi thought for a moment. He seemed to have gone overboard just now. He'd beaten the old man up indiscriminately. Zhang Tianyi searched his body and found a strange grass bracelet. He tossed it to the skinny old man. "This is for you. Treat it as compensation." The skinny old man's withered heart was finally nourished a little. He didn't know what this grass bracelet was, but the magical wave on it couldn't be faked. It must be a priceless treasure. Then Qin Zhao, Zhang Tianyi, and 23rd left. Zhang Tianyi changed his outfit. After all, he was too famous in the spiritual world. If he just walked on the street casually like this, there was 100% chance that he would be recognized. Plus, there were spiritualists everywhere. The three of them sat on chairs in the open-air restaurant. Is this really a private island? Chen Zhao looked at the street. 90% of the people were spiritualists. It felt unreal. Compared to the world outside the island, this was like a different world. "Yes, this is the property of the Egler family," 23rd said. 23rd generation said, "They used to be a wealthy family in Europe, but now the Egler family has declined. The Bhikkhu Islands are the only remaining property of the Egler family. Of course, if it's just money, they don't lack it. Their family members can be listed on the Forbes Rich list every year. However, there aren't many psychics in their family. They can only rely on hiring psychics to maintain the family's security. The Egler family doesn't have any spiritualists now. Yes, right now, there are no more than 5 awakened spiritualists in their family. 2 of them are still children, and the other 3 are considered unimportant characters in the spiritual world. However, their wealth is enough to make everyone drool, so they can only hire spiritualists to protect the safety of their family and property. Is their decline just because their people are weak? Chen Zhao didn't believe that a wealthy family in the spiritual world would decline for no reason. That's just one aspect. There are basically 3 reasons for a family's decline: foreign invasion, lack of potential, and lack of wealth. Chapter 3106. Magical beasts with human contracts could even be seen everywhere in the 100 treasury islands. They followed their masters around freely. So, Chen Zhao didn't need to hide the underlings anymore. If he brought it along casually, he wouldn't attract any attention at all. Of course, there were quite a lot of underlings following Chen Zhao. There were more than 10 of them. They followed Chen Zhao into shops of various sizes. She carried Chen Zhao's things and served him tea. Chen Zhao turned into another shop. This one was different from the magic shops he'd been to before. Regular magic shops would have a sinister aura. This one was bright and spacious. It looked like it was selling high-end products, but in reality it was also a magic shop. Seeing Chen Zhao enter, the salesperson immediately walked over. "Sir, how may I help you?" Chen Zhao looked at the products in the glass cabinet. "These are pastries, right? Or did I get it wrong?" Smiling, the salesperson said, more accurately, they're magic pastries. Oh, our shop doesn't prohibit magical creatures from entering. Are those little gnomes your contracted magical beasts? You can let them come in and sit or rest. Chun Zhao looked at the underlings standing at the door. Come in and take a seat. The underlings immediately obeyed and ran in. It wasn't that they were tired. In fact, even though underlings looked small, their stamina was actually quite good. If they were empty-handed, they could probably run a marathon. Sometimes, Chun Zhao would let them run to the crypt demon's nest. A round trip was as easy as drinking water for them. Their only weakness was their short lifespan. A underling couldn't live more than 20 years. It was Chun Zhao's order that they'd run in so quickly. The salesperson clearly knew how to do this. If Chun Zhao came in alone, he'd probably just look around. But if Chun Zhao's contracted magical beast came in, he'd probably be too embarrassed to just look around. Sir, apart from the exceptional taste of these magical pastries, they also have the effect of eliminating fatigue and restoring mana. There are also some advanced magical pastries that can even heal injuries and remove curses. Aren't these magic potions? Yes, but no, the salesperson said. The salesperson said the first is the taste. Sir, you must have drunk magic potions before. You should know that the best taste of magic potions is basically drinking fresh water. If it's some special potions in order to maintain a strong effect, the taste is basically no different from drinking water. Chun Zhao nodded. The salesperson continued. Magic pastries are mainly about the taste. There are many flavors, and they're definitely 100, even 1,000 times better than magic potions. Secondly, its efficacy. Although it can't compare to the best magic potions, it's still much better than ordinary magic potions. Isn't it just pastries made with magic ingredients? Chun Zhao felt that the salesperson was exaggerating. It's not as simple as cooking. At this moment, a dissatisfied voice sounded. A woman wearing a chef's hat walked in. The woman was slightly plump and looked like she was in her 30s. However, she wasn't plump. Instead, she looked plump. Chun Zhao turned around and looked at the woman. The woman was also observing him. You look like you eat magic ingredients often. Chun Zhao touched his cheek. You can tell. You have an obscure aura on you. This aura represents the magic ingredients you've eaten. However, the magic ingredients you use are all cooked simply, so you don't release the magic and life force in them. This causes the aura to be huge and mottled. If you can completely release the life force and magic and integrate it into your body, you can greatly increase your cultivation and lifespan. Chun Zhao understood. This meant that the magic ingredients contained special energy that could be converted into life force and magic. The magic ingredients he'd eaten in the past hadn't really been absorbed by him. This energy hadn't completely dissipated either. Instead, it was hidden in his body. How come I didn't notice? Do you have special magic? I'm a magic spiritual chef. You can think of it as a gourmet and chef in the spiritual world, and the best kind. Then how do I release the life, force, and magic of the ingredients I've eaten? How about we make a deal? What deal? Give me the source of the magic ingredients you've eaten, and I'll help you release the magic and life force in your body. My magic ingredients are all magical beasts that I hunt myself. I rear a few and don't sell them. I'll pay a high price, the woman said. I don't lack money, Chun Zhao replied with a smile. The woman stared at him. Do you know that if you can release the power of the magic ingredients, your power will multiply or even multiply? Chun Zhao smiled and shook his head. I don't believe you. How about we make a bet? The woman was also very confident. Bet on what? If I can increase your power by at least 5 times, you'll provide me with magic ingredients for a long time. What if I can't? The woman shrugged. Then I'll release the power of the magic ingredients for free. Power is very abstract. How are you going to measure it? With a confident expression, the woman said to the salesperson, Go get arcas. The salesperson quickly called out a super fatty who was 2 meters tall from the kitchen. This super fatty was estimated to be 300 kilograms, almost turning into a ball. Attack him with all your strength. You can use any attack, the woman said, pointing at the fatty. All my strength? Here? Are you sure? You want to use an area of effect spell? The woman was a bit hesitant. No, I'm just very confident in my power. I'm afraid that I'll kill him and destroy your shop. Don't worry. Arcaz's body is very special. Almost no attack can hurt him. Chen Zhao narrowed his eyes and looked at the fatty before him. He also seemed to have no attributes. I'm an enhancer. Chen Zhao clenched his fists. We have the same body. I know what's special about it. He can resist most magic, but he can't defend against physical attacks. It's the same for him. His physical resistance allows him to possess a superhuman physique. Of course, he has sacrificed all of his attack power. That's why his defense is 10 times stronger than an enhancer of the same level, but he has no attack power at all. The woman was very confident. After all, she'd seen Arcaz's powerful side. Rather than saying it was powerful, it was more accurate to call it extreme defense. Arcaz had once faced an adult dragon's attack, and then remained unharmed. Chapter 3107. Sis, what did you call me for? Arcaz looked a bit naive. As if his brain wasn't working, the woman pointed at Chen Zhao. He wants to punch you and then give you good food. Oh, Arcaz looked at Chen Zhao. Come on. Forget it. Chen Zhao shook his head, smiling. Give me 2 magic pastries. Wait, didn't we agree to a bet? How can we just let it go like this? Chen Zhao was about to turn around and leave when Arcaz blocked his way. His limbs were short and thick, but he wasn't slow. After all, he was an enhancer. His body was much stronger than normal people. The woman was very confident in Arcaz's abilities. Chen Zhao pressed his hand on Arcaz's big belly. Both Arcaz and the woman froze. Bang! Arcaz's belly suddenly shrank, like a stone thrown into a calm lake, causing ripples to appear. Then, Arcaz spat out a mouthful of blood. Ouch! It hurts! It hurts! It hurts! The woman was frightened. Arcaz had a serious illness when he was young and had suddenly gained an extremely strong resistance, but his intelligence would forever stay at that age. The woman hurried over to help Arcaz up. However, Arcaz's physique was simply too big. Arcaz, how are you? What happened? It hurts. Arcaz clutched his belly and rolled around on the ground. The woman looked at Chen Zhao angrily. What did you do to Arcaz? You told me to hit him. Did you forget? The woman looked at Chen Zhao angrily. Chen Zhao still had a smile on his face. How is it? Can you calculate my strength? The woman couldn't say anything. She'd thought that it would be the same as before. Arcaz could estimate a person's strength range and give them a rough number. But this person clearly wasn't in Arcaz's range. What made her feel the most helpless was that she'd asked Chen Zhao to hit Arcaz. Now, she couldn't even take revenge. But the person she was most afraid of was Chen Zhao. She didn't know how he'd done it. After all, an adult dragon couldn't even kill Arcaz with its claws. No, it couldn't even hurt him. Arcaz could even take a hot bath under the dragon's breath. But Chen Zhao just pressed on Arcaz's belly. He did not even see him use any strength, but Arcaz actually vomited blood. She didn't understand how Chen Zhao had done it. Can I go now? Wait. The woman suddenly stopped him. Is there anything else I can teach you? Don't you want me to help you completely release the power of the ingredients you've eaten? Our bet doesn't seem to stand. You can try the effect first. With that, the woman suddenly slapped Chen Zhao's chest. Chen Zhao didn't stop her. The moment the woman's palm landed on Chen Zhao's chest, Chen Zhao felt a strange power in his body being activated. Next, blood oozed out from his mouth, nose, and ears. The woman took a few steps back. This power was gathering above Qin Zhao's head, slowly revealing itself like a ferocious beast. In the East, this thing is called Tao Tai. If you defeat it, you can obtain all of its power. The woman did it on purpose. Releasing and absorbing the power of the magic ingredients was a process, releasing a small amount of power each time. After a few or a dozen times, the power of the magic ingredients would be completely released and then absorbed. But this time, the woman was clearly taking revenge on Qin Zhao. She released all the power of the magic ingredients in Qin Zhao's body at once. But soon, she realized a problem. The power released from Qin Zhao's body did not stop. It kept releasing. Soon, the woman's expression changed. The Tao Tai was forming a physical body. The Tao Tai's body soon burst out of the shop. It was still growing bigger. He couldn't help it. He had eaten too many things in the past. He had also swallowed a lot of things alive. What kind of monster hadn't he swallowed before? The things he had swallowed seemed to be judged as ingredients too. Soon, dark clouds began to gather in the sky, and the sea in the distance surged with huge waves. The woman's expression changed to one of shock. What was going on? What exactly did this guy give out? Qin Zhao scratched his head. Something incredible seemed to have come out. Was this the materialization of what he had eaten in the past? The woman was about to faint. Just then, a figure descended from the sky. When the woman saw the person descending from the sky, she was so scared that her face turned pale. Celestial Master Zhang. She had actually alarmed him. Oh no, I'm so dead. I've caused such a huge commotion. Zhang Tianyi charged toward Qin Zhao with a furious expression. What are you doing? In Zhang Tianyi's eyes, this was undoubtedly Qin Zhao's doing. Apart from Qin Zhao, there was no other suspect at the scene. Qin Zhao chuckled. In principle, I didn't do it. Then did you do it or not? Qin Zhao laughed awkwardly again. This thing came out of my body. Zhang Tianyi's face darkened. So you did it? I don't care. Clean it up. Qin Zhao looked at the 100-meter-tall monster before him. A strange thought popped up in his mind. This thing came out of his body. What was it? Excrement? Or something else? Whatever. I don't want to think so much. I'm disgusting myself. Bang! The Tao Tai in front of Qin Zhao was suddenly sent flying. But after flying for 100 meters, it was pulled back. Bang! It was sent flying again and pulled back again. This happened over a dozen times. The monster lay on the ground. The woman sucked in a breath of cold air. Qin Zhao didn't do anything. The Tao Tai was sent flying back and forth several times. Qin Zhao suddenly looked at the woman. Is defeating it enough? Destroy it, the woman said. But she looked at the Tao Tai worriedly. She had helped many people with this ritual. There were also some powerful spirit controllers who could defeat the Tao Tai in their bodies in one go. But this was her first time releasing such a powerful and terrifying Tao Tai. She had never seen it before. This Tao Tai had already completely materialized. It was even possible that it had developed sentience. But it wasn't a real creature. So, it didn't have the fatal weaknesses of normal creatures. To destroy such a monster was also an impossible task. At least, in her opinion, it was impossible. The woman was a bit regretful now. If she had known that Qin Zhao would release a Tao Tai of this level, she wouldn't have dared to do so. She wouldn't dare to release it even if she was beaten to death. What did that man eat?